welcome to Wrestling And. It's been a while, everybody, and we are here to talk about Wrestling And 2021. Finally, the COVID crowds ended, at least in America, and we moved on back to having what we were all used to, and boy, did some great stuff come out of it this year. I think 2021 was a really good year for wrestling, and another amazing year for AEW. So, we're going to talk about that. Me and my wonderful co-host, Justin. Are you there, Justin?
I am here. Hopefully you didn't hear my kids screaming too loud in the background. Anyway, yes, we are sitting here on Christmas Eve. I know you mentioned that the COVID crowds, hopefully that is a permanent thing and they don't go back to that. NHL's already canceling, or not canceling, they're postponing their games and stuff like that.
I've heard
so
Omicron,
yes. It's striking us. It sounds like a good heel name right there.
It was the name of a video game back in the day that I used to play, Omicron the Nomad Soul. So that would be a good heel, Omicron, especially nowadays.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's just going to be this nice dominant strain that is mild and everyone gets that, and then we can get over this thing. Who knows? But we'll see in a couple weeks, I guess.
That's what I was saying after 2 weeks of COVID, bro, so we'll see.
That's what we're saying, yeah. Well, anyway, this is an escape from all that.
Yes.
Wrestling in 2021. Let's talk about, I guess our quasi-award show for the best of 2021.
Yeah, so Justin and I, it was actually Justin's idea that we do a best of, and I said, well, that's a great idea. So, we each have our own opinions on some things, and some things we might disagree on what our pick is, and that's okay, because it's cool that we both kind of can see it from our own perspective and talk about what we liked about this year, because it was a really good year. It was a especially good year for AEW, I would say. New Japan had a kind of a cold year, but, they're still dealing with clap crowds and that kind of stuff. But, we did have Shibata announce a new match this year, so that's pretty awesome.
That was definitely a big moment, and yeah, I know a lot of people do these breakout shows, but they're kind of fun, these best ofs. So that's what we like to wrap up the year a little bit.
It's fun because, as a fan, they can listen to us and kind of compare and contrast, and we always love to hear your guys' feelings as well. So if you think we totally missed the mark, let us know, because Justin and I didn't watch everything. We can't, it's impossible. Well, I'm sure that we both wish we could have, remembered and watched everything. But, for example, Stardom, there's a huge hole there for both of us where people talked about it. And so we can't always include all that stuff. So, let us know if we're totally wrong or if you totally agree with us. So we got a good amount of categories here. And you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, and just to kind of say, I know we, like Stardom and stuff like that, and maybe just some of the other stuff we don't get to watch, but we tried to really balance it out basically through WWE, AEW, and New Japan. And of course, if you guys have listened to us before, we mostly consume AEW and New Japan, probably New Japan, AEW in that order. So we do try and sprinkle in some WWE stuff because as much as we don't really consume the product, we do know that there's good stuff that they do occasionally, and we like to make sure that it gets on the list because it's still the biggest company in the world.
And I think you and I are both the type where if word goes around that there's a must-see watch in any promotion, we usually figure out a way to watch it. I mean, like, no one watches NXT UK, but, they'll tell you, oh, there's this one match you got to watch, and, so.
Yeah, I think we, have our finger on the pulse of it, even though we don't consume it as much as we used to, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We still have a finger on the pulse over there. So we're definitely not, anti-WWE. We're just we just don't watch as much of it as we used to for whatever reason.
Yeah, and things come and go. Like these last couple weeks, I haven't been too excited about wrestling, but there's not really a ton going on right exactly now, except actually AEW had some newsworthy stuff tonight. Cody won the belt, and obviously Kyle O'Reilly debuted, so that's kind of cool. But we got Tokyo Dome coming up, in
Yeah, and we'll probably our next episode might just be next week with a Tokyo Dome preview
Yeah, there's
for
Tokyo
Wrestle
Dome, and then
Kingdom.
there's I forget what else, but there's a good amount of stuff going on. There's a WWE pay per view, and then I don't know when that Battle of the
Day one,
Belts
yeah.
is, but that's going on too. So we got some stuff going on that we will get caught up and talk about, and we got a lot of cool episodes planned for wrestling and this, wrestling and that. We're not going to spoil it now, but we definitely have a lot of stuff, a lot of history that you guys want to definitely listen to. So we'll
For sure.
get to our first category here, which is the Breakout Star. You know, this is like the new guy. It doesn't have to be a new wrestler. It could be a veteran, but someone that really broke out this year, and the person that Justin and I just think is like made a mark this year and possibly could make a mark in the future as well. So we'll take turns. Like I'll go first, then you'll go first. But on this one, I'm gonna have you go first on who was your breakout star of 2021.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a tough one to go through because there's various levels. You had everything from, veterans that kind of found their way and kind of broke out and found a nice home and became very prominent. And then you had some young guys who basically just kind of came out of nowhere and became like the talk of the business. So it was like a really nice mix. And to me, the one that really stood out to me, I would have to go with Jeff Cobb at in New Japan. Basically, it wasn't Jeff Cobb's always been a great wrestler. I've seen him at PWG. He's been all over the indies here. I believe he's been in Ring of Honor and stuff like that too. So he's been all over
He's been in
WWE.
AEW.
He had that one appearance in AEW where he was with Jericho, but I think where it clicked with him this year that put him in a breakout star, and he had that great run in the G1, and is he really kind of figured out how to blend in with that New Japan style. And I think that's what just made him this prominent guy. Hopefully they continue with that. This is what hesitated to me, is because he had that breakout G1 where he became the only guy to win 6 straight or something like that, or get something. He was undefeated until the block final and lost to Okada. He was the first person to do that, maybe, or something to that effect. Very few.
He definitely made a mark
so
in the G1 for sure, and
right.
I agree with you, to be honest, and I may have said this on podcasts before, but like I used to know that if we had a G1 match with Jeff Cobb, I used to kind of be like, skippable. Where that has completely done a 180 to where now it's must watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think he always worked. He's a great worker, but I think it just took him a little while to figure out the New Japan style. It wasn't necessarily, I'm just got to plug in my computer, but yeah, it just took him a while to figure out the New Japan style, and he's really broke out. He's there year round now. Minus his coming back but he seems like the company really likes him and is taking him seriously. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he has really broken out this year. Maybe kind of started a little bit last year, but this year he's like cemented his place. He got to join with, I don't know if I'd call him a hot new faction, but he got to join with the Empire, and he's with Ospreay. And hopefully, as time goes by, I would just love to see more of him in New Japan. I would love to see him as a possible contender for the main title, and just. He's awesome, man. So he's done a great job this year.
yeah, and you talk about the group, the faction they're in. I think they would probably be a little more prominent and bigger if they were all together at the same time somewhere, which we might see in a few weeks.
We might see that. Yeah, we might see that in a few weeks. And I agree with that. Where you got the New Japan split, obviously. We have New Japan of America, Strong, and all that stuff. And they're almost like separate promotions in a way now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Cobb has kind of gone back and forth, right? He's done some Strong, and he's been in Japan quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think Japan is his number one spot. But I guess when he went home, and because they always give the guys a couple months off, that are the full timers that are out of the country for the most part. I mean, everyone's kind of left and come back a few different times this year. Whether it's, God or maybe everyone with Zack Sabre Jr. I don't even know if Zack Sabre Jr. is left.
Zack Sabre Jr.'s like stayed in Japan the whole time, dude.
I think so. And even for a while, Gabriel Kidd was staying in Japan until he came out here, for his excursion out to LA.
And that was causing him some mental problems and stuff too, which I think we might have talked about.
I don't know what was, but I'm glad. I wish, that's a whole other topic, and I'm glad he's doing better now. That's the bottom line there. But I think when, Jeff came back to the U.S., he worked some strong and some indies out here, just, to get a couple bucks or, stack up some more money when he was back in the States. And he's already back, and he's been back for a while.
Okay. Yeah, man. I agree with you for sure. That he's not my pick, though. I just want to say that. But I think that is a good pick.
No, yeah,
I think that is a good pick. Some other people we were talking about was Eddie Kingston, who didn't, right appear this year, but he's definitely, when I say make a mark, he's got to be one of the most popular people in AEW.
And one of the best promos in the entire business.
For sure.
And just when you take somebody in their late 30s who was just basically stamped an indie guy for life, and he's found this, home on a weekly nationally televised brand. I mean, that's a pretty, that's a breakout right there.
Do you remember the story where he was going to sell his gear before he got into AEW?
Well, I know I listened to the We Watch Wrestling podcast. You did. Vince Averill, he bought his pants from him at a show a few years ago, but when they came back out for the Defy show, Vince gave them back to him.
Oh, man.
And said, I don't need these. I'm going to give them back to you. And it was kind of a moment that was online. So, yeah, he was selling everything, and I think he was kind of in danger of losing his house and all that when the pandemic started. And this is this is all something to break out personally and professionally, I think. Maybe that was a big deal. I mean, he had matches with CM Punk, Bryan Danielson. I mean, can't do much better than that.
Great tag team with Moxley.
Yes, he was. Yeah, he's been alongside. He's been in some main angles, and he saved him from the quote unquote explosion match, right?
Boy.
The death match.
He did save him.
So he's had some big spots for sure, and he's found a permanent home in AEW for sure, or at least a stable, contracted job on a national company.
Mm-hmm. And, I'm really happy for the guy. Now, on a sidebar here, real quick, I mean, this is a kind of a side note, but, you see wrestlers selling their gear. It always seems a little desperate to me. I mean, do you think they're just trying to get rid of old stuff, make a few bucks? I guess it depends on the situation, right? But I mean, I saw Robbie Eagles selling gear recently, and I was like, really, Robbie? Have you hit those hard times?
Sometimes they don't really wear it that much. And first of all, it's probably very expensive to get that stuff custom made. So you know what though? They got to pay their quarterly taxes if they're getting 1099s, and sometimes it just helps contribute to or how much they're paying for health insurance. Maybe they're like, I'll just sell my gear that just sits in the back of a closet. I'll get some money from some mark. I'll put my signature on it, and it's a collector's item. I mean, I think they just supplement their income a little bit with it. Why not? You don't see Roman Reigns or any of the Kevin Owens or whatever selling their gear as much, but you see kind of the indie guys because they have to supplement their income a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and you said the gear is expensive to be made. I don't know if people realize how expensive, but I'm just going to give you an example. Hana Kimura, when she was on the show and her gear got washed and she cried, and there's a dark path that went down from that we're not going to get into. But
well, you mean got washed?
Got washed. It got washed, but it shrunk it and ruined it.
Oh, I see. Right.
So
got laundered improperly.
She was. They were talking about how much it was, and her gear was $1,000, and this is a women's gear that's smaller.
For one outfit, one set or kit, whatever they call them. Well, yeah. I mean, they get them hand sewn, and it's not like you could just walk into a dry cleaner and ask them to hem this for you. You have to get people. I mean, look at guys like Colt Cabana who actually know how to sew and do their own gear. yeah, he taught himself how to sew. So yeah, it's a valuable thing. And but also if there's someone doing well and they're selling their gear, maybe Robbie Eagles is giving some of it to charity or something like that. You don't know. Like he could just be selling it. But Robbie Eagles, I would imagine, wrestles probably 8 months a year in Japan and all that.
He does now, yeah, and
And
then in Australia, otherwise New Zealand.
right. So he probably just adds it to his income. Especially you get gear and you probably don't wear it for the rest of your life. Or sometimes you don't see guys in the same gear, that often. They don't wear the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it
They
gets
have to
old,
flip it
like, or
out.
it's their heel gear or whatever, and now they're baby faces, and they're like, I'll never wear
Or
this again.
they might, just to cut down, like Hana Kimura and all that stuff, paying $1,000 for gear. Maybe you sell it for 700 when you're done, and then you put it into getting new gear. So you have to be resourceful with your money in that
Yeah, and
business.
there's all sorts of reasons, right? Some people, it depends on their situation they're in. So, I mean, although
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy gear personally, and neither would I pay to shake a wrestler's hand, but I mean, there are, like you said, quote unquote marks out there that love that shit, especially for female wrestlers. I mean, look at Jordan Grace. Like, I'm not going to talk too much about her because whatever, but I mean, there are dudes lined up to buy her gear, and probably not for the best reasons either.
Who was your breakout star of the year?
My breakout star was Daniel Garcia.
Yeah.
I think that it's not a surprise to everyone that Daniel Garcia is like this breakout star. And the thing with Daniel Garcia, it's not so much what he did this year, although he had a lot of great matches. It's that I just see this guy as really having a future. He this is the first year that he kind of came on my radar. I saw him do a little promo with 2.0, and I was really impressed with his talking. But then in the ring, he just has this like old school kind of a Japanese technical style, and I think there's so much potential there. So he hasn't been pushed to the moon. He nothing like that, but he really made an impression on me, and I think when he gets older, it's just going to get better and better. I mean, he kind of looks like a kid right now. Kind of has that hook thing going on.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that, yeah, he definitely was someone like you, jumped on my radar this year. And yeah, we talked about Hook's a guy that we got this little small sample size, but I know there's a lot of people that are willing to call him a breakout star.
Need a
But
little more for that, personally.
yeah. But no, I think Daniel Garcia will be one of those guys because, wrestlers don't really find their, like, I don't know how to explain this in another way, especially, with men wrestlers. Maybe they don't really find their quote unquote wrestling body until they hit their 30s.
Yeah, I mean, the
That's when
wrestlers are usually in their prime in their mid-30s.
yeah, so that's usually when they like kind of like fill in and develop the working body that they're gonna have. And I think he'll put on some weight. Hook will put on some weight and kind of fill out.
I mean, look at Jay White. Look what Jay White,
And yeah, definitely that's a guy who broke out.
the way his body changed.
I know that, oh yeah, exactly, because they figure out how to take care of their body a little bit more and what they need to do to, all that. Because I think, for the most part, they probably start to train less and, work on wrestling less, and they start to work on their body once they kind of figure out who they are in the ring in terms of and then maybe from there they that's when they actually work on their body and their appearance and their weight a little bit more. In that regard. And I know we had some other people on the list too, but I mean, Great O'Khan from New Japan obviously had a really big year too. Same stable as Jeff Cobb. And then Braun Breaker is another guy that's hard to ignore. You want to talk about a guy who already has his body put together and, the lineage there. And I didn't even really know, he wasn't on my radar at all this year, but the only thing that kind of hold me back from Breakout Star of the Year with him is he didn't
There just hasn't been enough for me in a way.
Yeah, it was a little more, obviously a little more of a sample size than we got from Hook. But I don't know, I feel like they're just they put him out on the burner for a little bit and they're letting him stew now. They're just putting him out there. And obviously they're I wish they would just go with that Steiner thing right away and take it from there.
I don't know if that'll ever happen.
at least acknowledge that. I don't have they. I haven't really watched a lot of
Well,
the
he's
new
he's
NXT.
he's thrown in like the math promo into some things he said and stuff. So of course
That's his
the
uncle,
low
yeah.
hanging fruit, right? But I mean, the guy they could have just called him Braun Steiner and stuff. And his gear is kind of he wears that singlet, which is kind of.
Oh, he looks like, yeah, his dad's singlet when they would wear those colorful singlets in their kind of WWE run in the early 90s. He just doesn't wear the headgear. That's the only thing.
Which I don't think any wrestler is going to be wearing headgear. It's almost considered a joke. Fucking
Josh Alexander wears it, and he's pretty awesome.
That's true. That's true. Josh Alexander wears it, but it really reminds me of Michael Cole, like wearing headgear.
You know what it reminds me of? I don't know how big of a baseball guy you are, but there was this first baseman that played in the 90s, a little bit into the zeros. His name was John Olerud. He played for the Blue Jays. Yeah, he played for the Blue Jays, the Mets, and the I believe Seattle. And he used to wear one of those when he'd play first base. He would wear a helmet, the one with no ear covers,
Yeah.
like the catchers used to wear. He had a head injury as a kid, so he had like some kind of
Oh, here we go.
thing where he
I see that here.
for
Okay.
safety. He would wear. He was a great hitter, great first baseman, but he wore a little helmet when he's out on the field, because he had some type of condition with his skull or something like that.
Well, it sounds
That's what
like
it
he
kinda
was
reminds me of.
doing the right thing, but it does look kind of funny to be honest. Like like seeing him out there wearing that plastic helmet. That's funny.
Yeah. Now all the like first and third base coaches wear them, but yeah. Well, obviously you got it to pull off the headgear. You got to be a Josh Alexander or a Rick Steiner type. I mean, there's very few guys that can really pull it off. I guess it's like goggles in basketball. There's Kareem and James Worthy and a few other guys that could ever pull that look off. Horace Grant. There's very few guys that could pull that look off, and it worked for them because you have to really be kind of like that badass kind of amateur style dude to pull off that look. I'm gonna get up and close my door real quick.
Yeah, that's okay. But I agree with you on that, man. Although I still think Josh Alexander does look kind of goofy with it. But hey, he is a badass. So I want to talk about other badasses that maybe companies don't see them as badasses. So the next category we have is most underutilized. Now, Justin and I it was most underrated, but we found ourselves kind of leaning towards underutilized. And I mean, there's so many wrestlers that, they're really great wrestlers, Ricochet being the obvious example, that are just not quite where the fans think they should be or where their skill kind of you would think they would be. So my pick, I went with a bit of a surprise pick here, but I honestly think, and yeah, she has had some good programs, but I think Serena Deeb is mine. Now Ricochet, like I said, that's the obvious one, so I kind of didn't go with that because that's like the eternal most underutilized. He's always, every year he's in WWE, he will be the most underutilized. So yeah, Serena Deeb, I think she's a really great technical wrestler. I think that she has that like veteran appeal where she looks a little older. She's actually 30. I think she's 35. I think she's my age. I hope I'm not wrong. And like, I find out, she's actually 28, and let me just double check that. So,
No, I mean, she was in the Straight Edge Society with CM Punk, so I would have to think, what was that, circa 2000?
Yeah, she's 35.
10. Yeah, that puts her out of her 20s for sure.
Shaved
but
head
hey,
back then, right?
Women wrestlers now can wrestle, into their 40s a little bit now. I mean, look at Asuka. I mean, we haven't seen her for a while because she's coming back from injury, but she still looks, great and at the top of her game. So I think you're going to see a lot of longer careers, and rightfully so with women's
Mickie James
wrestlers.
is 42, dude.
I know, and she looks great too, and she's still in phenomenal shape and all that stuff. So it's great.
Yeah, she actually almost looks better nowadays in a way. I mean, that could. I guess we're just talking about looks and stuff, but I think she looks great. And like you said, Asuka. I mean, you have Emi Sakura, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
have the NXT Women's Champion, who is an all-time great, Meiko Satomura, and she's just like one of the best women wrestlers of all time, if not regular wrestlers of all time. And she's older as well, so I definitely love seeing that. But Serena Deeb, I just she has been in a few programs, but I really think that she could be featured even more to the point of I think that she could be the champion there. Now, she might not be as over. Like she hasn't done a ton of promo work and stuff like that. But I think that's why I'm saying she's underutilized is because she hasn't been out there. But every match I've seen from her has been good. And I remember she had a match with like Allison Kay. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah, former NWA Women's Champion. Yeah,
Yeah, they had
or
a
is she
match.
still?
They
Who is
had
the
a match.
NWA Women's Champion right now?
Okay, okay.
Who is?
They had
No,
a.
I'm
Oh no
asking.
no! It's Camille, right?
Is it Camille?
I believe so.
Oh, you know what?
in
That
the-
makes sense. I bet you it is her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
she's
I,
pretty awesome.
she's cool too. I followed her on Instagram for a while. You know, she's got like a thick Southern accent and stuff. It's kind of funny. I didn't realize that, but when she was with Nick Aldis, I liked that little combo they had
Oh,
too.
that dynamic was really cool, especially because she just, she didn't need to talk. The face, like, just said, very expressive kind of stone face. But anyway, underutilized. I know we had some other kind of, I don't know if honorable mention is the right word for it, but I know like somebody like, maybe a lot of people will this isn't my pick, but I've heard the case made that, Hiroshi Tanahashi's been a little misused the last couple years in terms of, with what he's been doing in terms of, losing to a guy like Chase Owens and just kind of always being there to take, take the pin in a match when they need him to, whether it was against Shingo or just whatever. And people are just maybe saying that this is one of the greatest wrestlers of our era in the world in the last 15 years. And to see him kind of, taking a bunch of pins at this stage of his career might be kind of a disservice to his career. Yeah, it might be a disservice to his lineage and to all that stuff. And I can totally see that argument. And of course, Ricochet is another just super obvious choice. Just because you had a guy with, I know that he doesn't give a great promo. Maybe doesn't have a lot of, verbal charisma, but boy, in the ring, like that, he's like a superhero. In terms of he looks great. And he's got moves that are just like gravity defying, and you could definitely, sell him just on that stuff alone. But yeah, he's been underutilized, and he's been basically a Aldo Montoya style jobber, really, is what they've been using him as. But my pick is this, and it's really tough because you got a guy who has held the Intercontinental title numerous times, the United States title, and arguably the Intercontinental title used to be the second biggest championship, almost in the world, and it's at its peak. And if you were the Intercontinental champion, you were the number one contender, blah 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 blah. But to me, it's just just kind of been a disappointment in his run of like 6 years in WWE, and that's Shinsuke Nakamura. And that was one guy that I was just super looking forward to coming to WWE, and that might be the last guy where I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this guy in WWE. And
I know, man. We were all so excited, like.
And they gave us Nakamura and AJ Styles at WrestleMania, and it was a pretty good match. Obviously, it wasn't Tokyo Dome quality, and it just turned him into a ball puncher at the end. And he's been kind of a comedic act. He's been they
With
never
Rick
should
Boogs
have.
lately,
He should have been a world champion. He should have beaten Jinder Mahal, but they just made him kind of job out to him. And then he had that win over John Cena that kind of looked like they were launching him up, but now he's just kind of been this mid-card, title holder, and they have him coming out with that Boogs guy. But the one thing about I think Nakamura is he seems very content with what WWE's doing with him. So more power to him.
And that might be like one of the issues there where I might not have chosen him is that, and we don't know for sure. We don't talk to the guy, but you always hear the rumors that the what everyone says is, oh, he's just surfing. He's
Right.
just has a place where he can surf, and it might be the case. I don't know what his motivation is. We know that that house style of WWE is wildly different than New Japan, and I mean he can't do a lot of the same stuff he used to do, but I mean his so his match quality, it has gone down, but at the same time, like, they just they see something in him, but obviously it's not enough to go to that next level, and he is the IC champ, and like you said, it's like it's become a meaningless title. I mean, they changed the look of it to its detriment, in my opinion. And now, like, I almost think like the United States title in NXT is better than that belt,
Or the North
American title. Yeah,
I definitely think the NXT title is better, but they just don't really have. I don't know. I would almost throw the Intercontinental title in NXT and make that there. I mean, I just don't think there's not enough people that want the title. Like, it's not, average. It's not presented as something that people would want to be after. I don't know. But
no, it's not something you
it's,
chase like before, like maybe how it was in the 90s, or I remember when they had an episode of Raw where they were literally froze out of the arena, and John Moxley was walking around the like WWE headquarters, and he was looking at all the people that used to be Intercontinental Champ and was like, I want this belt now. But it's like, since then, 100 people have held the belt, and it's changed its look, and it's just not what it is. But I could see where you're going for with Nakamura.
I mean, let's correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a guy that to this point should have been a world champion 2 to 3 times by now.
I mean, yeah. This Jinder Mahal, I mean, that whole experiment was a joke, and I was waiting for someone to take the belt from him. Thank God they finally, cut bait or whatever with that. But
wasn't it AJ Styles at a house show or something like that, or just a random Raw episode?
I think I watched it, but it was like, I think they finally smartened up and were like, no, we can't do this. Although they have pushed him, he must be well liked. I'll say that. He's probably a nice guy.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, we're not really talking about that, but he's one of my favorites, and I kind of wonder what would happen if he would have stuck around in New Japan. But I think he's in WWE for the rest of his career. I mean, he's getting up there too. He's in his early 40s, so there's no need for him to say, I want to go back into a G1. I mean, why would he want to do that at this point?
Yeah, that's totally true, man. I mean, you hope that he still has that fire inside of him, but I don't know. Although I'll say this, I think I told you this, but he said that he's really happy the belt in New Japan changed because now he will forever be the youngest IWGP champion ever. Youngest ID. So that because there is no more people that can get that belt. So there you go.
Unless they bring it back in a week, who knows?
No, I do. They're not doing that.
It's a beautiful title.
All right, moving on to the next category. Do you want to talk about this category and tell us who your fave was? Do you have the list up, or do I need to announce
I
it?
have the list up. This was most overrated, and this is a tough one because I kind of like everyone almost, and I kind of, for the most part, think everyone is rated where they should be. I know we have the initial list here, and like I kind of just thought of someone that popped into my head was my pick. Because you got a lot of people on here. Some of them are just big merch sellers, but then when they don't really back it up, you got people that are just labeled as the greatest, but maybe it's the fact that they don't have a lot of great competition that makes them seem overrated. But this was one that we didn't kind of talk about that this week, but this is always one that I've kind of had in the back of my mind. And this isn't someone that I dislike. I kind of enjoy at times, but to me, it would be Sonata.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. I could totally see that, man. He's really hit or miss. And what else do you think about him?
Well, to me, I just don't see a lot of. See, that's the thing where I think he's bigger with the Japanese crowd. In terms of he just doesn't really emote or have any charisma. For someone that's in a group with someone like Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi and even Bushi to a degree, he just doesn't really fit in with them in terms of his expressiveness. And to be honest with you, every time they put him in a big spot, he doesn't deliver. His G1 final with Ibushi was very pedestrian. Anytime he's had a title match, very pedestrian with Okada. I just think he's a mid-card, middle of the. I think he's big with the Japanese fans. I don't know if he's like. I know he's a handsome dude, but I don't know if he's like what Japanese people consider handsome. At least my wife's like, oh, he's not really. You got to be a little more kind of clean cut and not have as much facial.
An
hair
Abe
kind of
Lincoln
thing.
beard.
Right. The chin
Dyed
strap,
blonde.
like I had in high school in my 20s, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like something's missing with him, but he's yet maybe not recently, but he's always in the mix with the G1 if he doesn't make the G1 final, and he gets one or two big matches a year, and to be honest with you, he just doesn't deliver. I mean, he was good with Evil when they were doing their tag run, and he's actually been a pretty good team with Naito, and he's even got a special singles match at the Dome. But I don't know, man. There's just
Who's
something
that
missing
against?
with him. He either has, I think he has Okan, and Naito has Jeff Cobb. So that's what they're doing. So, I don't know. I just think every time he's given his big spot, he doesn't really deliver like you would think somebody in that spot should. And there's just something lacking with his emotion and presentation.
It's weird though, because you know what? There's this kind of stone cold charisma, no pun intended with the actual stone cold, but there's this kind of coldness charisma that a lot of wrestlers can have. You look at Misawa, one of the best wrestlers of all time. Dude is like emotionless, okay? But I mean, there's something about that in the ring where it just totally works. But I think it's weird because Sonata has this kind of stone cold, and like even Shibata doesn't really talk much at all. He's that guy that has that kind of coldness, but when he wrestles, there's something about it where it's like it totally all works together as a package. But Sonata, he has that cold, doesn't speak a whole lot, but I feel like his in-ring just doesn't really work with that, especially when the dude has one of the worst moves in wrestling, the Paradise Lock, and it's like he's doing a comedy move in, serious matches.
It's good, right.
But I mean, in final matches and stuff, for me, it's just a little too much to see his opponent in a serious match pretend like they're all tied up. Yeah, it's wrestling, okay? I know that, but like that move really pulls me out for like, it pulls me out. It's hard to suspend my disbelief. It's just laughable. Like, why did he just do that, man? And yet he's this stone cold kind of.
Well, he's the cold skull, but then he comes out looking like a space pirate. And then at times he's had the neck beard and the spiked blonde mohawk, faux hawk. I mean,
and the shiny mask.
If you're gonna come out with that badass kind of look and presentation, I think maybe that's what they try with him, but it just doesn't go all the way. I mean, Shibata comes out there with black trunks, some kick pads, and slick back hair, and it's like,
that's it.
Let's go.
He just sits in the middle of the ring, cross-legged.
Right. Masawa would come out with all green and just focused, and even like someone like Camille.
True.
That look on their face, you just look at him and you're getting your ass whooped. I don't get that from looking at Sonata.
I agree. And the space pirate thing, it's just, Misawa would just come out like a boxing star, kind of like with his crew and just ready, focused, right? Yeah, and Sonata, it's almost like he's a little too into himself in a way to have that attitude. So good choice there. That wasn't on our list, but that was a great choice. Can I tell the people what my choice was?
Yes.
My choice is a wrestler that I think is great. And I think he's done a great job. And I don't necessarily blame him for this, because I think he has done a really good job, but it's what's happened, his effect. And that is CM Punk. So CM Punk, he has had a great year. This is the biggest comeback like ever in wrestling,
Right.
maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I was saying I'm agreeing with you in terms of him having a big comeback.
Yeah, great comeback. I mean, a historical wrestling moment. The thing is I kind of heard Ric Flair say this, and I know that Ric Flair is not the best for wrestling opinions. I mean, he kind of has a little craziness on his own, but he was like, this Punk comeback, they should be doing at least 1.1 million per episode with him on the show, and the ratings did go up, and they have gone up, but not so tremendously that you could say he's made a giant effect. So on top of it,
You know what though? I mean, ratings. I mean, I don't know if ratings. It's just I don't know. Like you get people DVRing and CM Punk selling a ton of T-shirts and all that stuff. So I think there's just more to it than ratings.
well,
Um,
I agree
yeah,
as well,
I don't
man.
know.
But we're not the TV executives that are making new deals and deciding how much money these people should get for the show, and that's where
Oh, sure,
most of the
yeah.
money comes from for the companies. Is these TV deals, and so that's the metric that they look at. They're not looking. They probably are, but they're not as much looking at YouTube ratings. They're looking at the ratings they're getting on their channel so they can sell ads. And so I think in this case, I was a little surprised at how much they didn't leap up, and how many weeks they've had where it's like back to normal. So I think just in that case that I think he is the most overrated. And on top of that, he has, you know, I thought he got outshined by MJF, honestly, in their promo battle. And I just, I don't know, man. There's just something there. I think he's going to get a little more attitude as time goes by. And I would love to see that. But he's done great. He's had good performances, but I wanted a spicy pick for that one. So
I mean, yeah, no, I get it because you know what? Like, as much as I love CM Punk, and I just, I think a lot of people for years have probably thought there's always been an undercurrent of people that said he's overrated because maybe he didn't deliver in ring and put together legendary matches like a lot of guys do, and he was really just kind of put on a pedestal because he had that magical Money in the Bank moment where he beat John Cena in Chicago. He has the pipe bomb promo, and after that it's like, okay, what else has he done? There's some people that say that, and he had a great match with the Undertaker at WrestleMania 27, 28, something like that.
yeah, had some good
But
matches with Daniel Bryan.
yeah, had some good matches with Daniel Bryan, but who hasn't? But there has been an undercurrent. Yeah, I don't really think it's that controversial of a pick because there's always been a kind of an undercurrent of people thinking CM Punk is overrated. So
And I was saying
I
your
wouldn't
uncle,
argue that.
right?
My uncle hates CM Punk and thinks he's the worst champion in WWE history. He comes from
What a mark.
the opinion of he took his ball and went home kind of thing.
Ooh.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do understand when people don't like CM Punk. I understand why they don't, but I'm not one of those people. I love CM Punk, so you know how sometimes you could understand why someone or something rubs someone the wrong way, but that doesn't mean you share that opinion. But you can emphasize with that someone being like that.
Well, it's like the
That's why.
opposite with Toriano. I kind of hate him, but I understand why people think he has his place. So
Right. Yeah, with Toriano and CM Punk, they're kind of an acquired taste, where people can, how there's some people that cilantro tastes like soap. It's just something with their taste
there is
buds,
a
right?
genetic reason that I don't like Toriano. Like if I had a
Yeah,
different
there you go.
mutation, then I would be a huge fan of Toriano. So
Yeah,
yes,
instead of
that's a
picking
great
your
example.
pronoun, you have to tell people whether you like Toriano or not, right?
Yes,
But
exactly.
so yeah, like I said, I can understand the CM Punk thing, but obviously if they put him in a title match program, I'm pretty sure their ratings will go up. Or if they said next week on Dynamite, CM Punk faces Adam Page for the WWE title. I'm sorry, for the AEW title. If the WWE title, that would be a huge rating boost. But
that would be
for
crazy.
the AEW title, that would get the huge ratings if they just gave it to, I don't know, Jungle Boy or Adam Page versus Darby Allin.
Darby Allin.
I mean, that would be a big match. But if CM Punk was to get that title shot, that would be a huge ratings boost.
And you can see that in the YouTube numbers, dude. Like, his YouTube numbers are always, like, really high compared to all the other stuff. Like you know, his thing with MJF was, like, over 1 million views and stuff. And I was like, holy shit. So... Right,
yeah. So I'm telling you, he still has that spike power. I think, look, that great moment on Wednesday with he did the old Sting makeup and everything, and I thought that was a really awesome moment. I mean, that was, you know, kind of
I missed that, but I heard it was an awesome match.
It was really good, and Sting shocks me that the dude can somewhat hold himself together in a ring. We have to sit there and suffer through watching Jotto and Gato wrestle in their early 50s and Dick Togo, right?
Oh God.
I would rather see Sting wrestle 1 million times in a row than watch those guys get in the ring again. Sting knows his limitations and still does kind of the big spots. The other guys might be visually in better shape, but they can barely move. Or even a guy like Honma or Tenzan. Like, those dudes don't need to be out there wrestling
or Muda anymore. Or Muda. Like, or it's Muda. Just like, dude, what are you doing?
I think they should do Muda Sting again. Why not? But no, Sting just impresses me a little bit. I think he's still a little bit of an odd match for Darby Allin. I don't really understand that.
Well, they both are dark. They are dark and brooding. That's it. I think it's a cool mix.
Yeah, it's worked pretty well.
It's given Darby some credibility too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Darby's one of those guys that, you know, is going to be one of their, you know, and like we said, you know, I know MJF talked about it too, the 4 pillars, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, in 5-6 years, that company is going to be MJF, Jungle Boy, and Darby Allin at the top, right? I mean...
Yeah, and then we'll have a whole batch of new guys at the bottom too, hopefully. Yeah,
maybe someone like Daniel Garcia or Hook. Those guys are definitely, you know, the future of that company and of really the entire business.
Totally. I totally agree, man. So talk about some guys that are kind of at their top currently in the business, and they aren't wrestlers. They're the talkers, the announcers. So we have a best announcer here, and we only put down 3 choices, and you know they're kind of probably going to be the same 3 choices every year for a while, I imagine. And maybe, that is Kevin Kelly, Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, and I should add Taz to that because I think Taz is great. You agree?
Oh, I love Taz. Yeah, definitely. Great color commentator.
I loved listening to... I wasn't a fan of WWE during the time, but every time I hear him in old WWE matches, it really hypes me up. You know, he was a great announcer in WWE as well, and he knows all his moves and stuff. But I didn't choose Taz. I chose Tony Schiavone because, I mean... Tony Schiavone does kind of play a character, right? When he's definitely their babyface announcer, but I love the guy. I love his announcing, man. When he's in shock, when he's surprised, when there's someone out there that he hates, he's the one that calls them, you know, names and stuff like that. I love the gimmick that way. And just the fact that this guy, he was a guy who was doing baseball for a AA, AAA team, you know?
The fact that like a decade, yeah.
The fact that this guy is back on TV and doing, you know, what he has done. I mean, this guy's been around. I mean, he was around in the 80s, you know, this guy has announced like matches that some of the best matches of all time in the 80s. He's seen so much. And to have this kind of renaissance of his career, it's just great. And he's done a great job. Now, this is as opposed to JR, who's not on our list, because JR is having a renaissance too, and we like JR, but there's also...
Get well soon, JR. He's going through some skin cancer treatment.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's going to be on the mend soon. He's supposed to be back at the end of the month, but I mean, yeah, we've talked about JR numerous times, and just, if we're never gonna deny the fact that JR has some of the best calls and the sound bites and calls in the history, of professional wrestling. But at times has come across, especially with AEW, has come across as kind of not devil's advocate, but very contradictory and condescending with the way he's been taught. Yeah, with how he's kind of undersold what's going on, and kind of, old man yelling at clouds.
Back talk his peers, a little bit
Yeah,
unprofessional.
right. Sound old man yelling at clouds moments. For sure.
Well, let me tell you,
just to,
I want to say to you real quick, you were telling me the last time we talked, you were saying, oh, he's kind of always been that way. And I was like, in my head, I was like, no, he hasn't. But then I watched that Undertaker match with Shawn Michaels, and I could hear some of it. He goes, there's a bunch of idiots in the back who say, oh, they know how to fall. And I was like, that was a weird thing to say that kind of exposes the business a little bit. And
well, I think a lot of times, too, he would be very kind of whiny against the heels. Like, oh, here he comes again with his cheating. Why can't he? Like, he would be very whiny in that way. And then, of course, it made for a good mix with him and the King, because the King was like the heel announcer. And I think these days you have way less of that oil and water heel and babyface announcer. You do have a heelish announcer. Like, I know a guy like Taz, I guess, is technically a heel announcer, but when they announce, they're much more down the middle. They're not like Bobby Heenan and Jerry the King Lawler used to be.
They only or like fucking Corey Graves is. Like, they don't just like play that ridiculous character where for some reason they always root for the heel and it makes no sense.
Right.
Taz is definitely more down the middle, and he called, even if a heel, does some crazy move, or a babyface does some crazy move, he knows the name of the move and he'll call it. And so, but obviously we don't want to talk too much bad about JR. Props to him, but I think Tony Schiavone, I love him this year, man. I think his thing with Britt Baker's always been really funny to me. His just presence there, he just makes me happy, man, watching. He sounds so excited watching AEW. He sounds so into it, and it really rubs off, in my opinion.
I agree with all that, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a huge fan of Schiavone back in the day, in the WCW days. Granted, I wasn't really watching wrestling when he was doing like the Jim Crockett stuff. Obviously, I
disliked him.
I wasn't a fan. I thought he was very vanilla.
I agree. Back in the day, I felt the exact same way, especially compared to the King and Jake.
He had a very kind of yucky voice, like, where he really put on that announcer's voice. And I didn't really come to appreciate him until basically Conrad got him and had the podcast with What Happened When. And that's when kind of got a personality out of him and just kind of just loved him since then. And yes, he's done everything great for AEW. He looks so relaxed, and it's just, you could tell he's, like we say with most of the stuff in AEW, everyone's just enjoying what they're doing, and that's reflected and makes for better work. When you enjoy what you're doing, your product is better. I mean, when your talent is happy and enjoying themselves, it's going to be reflected in what you see. And Tony Schiavone has, granted, he's always on a 3 or 4 man team out there and really hasn't had to carry something by himself necessarily. Or
didn't he do Dark with Paul White?
I think he's doing Dark with Paul White, but I don't watch a lot of Dark. I think the last one I watched was Excalibur and Taz. I watched some.
Well, that's Dark, but Dark Elevation is.
Oh, Dark. What is that? Oh,
Mondays.
I don't know. Is that like? Yeah. See, I haven't really watched a lot of that, so I'm not sure. So I haven't even seen a lot of. Or heard a lot of Paul White's commentary, but yeah, I totally understand the Schiavone thing, and to me, it's just been a renaissance of his career. It's been beautiful, but I went with Kevin Kelly because I just think that no one works harder or carries a product like he's been doing this year, and he's had for years, but this year he has had such a challenging environment to deal with. And we're talking about a guy who's been calling matches at I don't know what, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning from his basement.
Well, he's East Coast, so no, 5:30. 5:30
Okay,
a.m.
maybe
to
that's a little bit
4:30.
better
It could be
than out
worse,
here.
actually, dude. If
Yeah,
he's a
but I
late,
definitely don't think I could get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and call 4 hours of wrestling
and be
sitting
in
in
that
this chair I'm
mode.
sitting now, and having to transport yourself to a venue 5,000 miles away while you're sitting in your pajama bottoms. Like, and just the fact that he has had to uh nurse and create color commentators out of people that have had no broadcast experience, and he's carried shows solo. um so not only has he been calling shows in his basement at 5 o'clock in the morning, but he's been doing it by himself for the most part. And just someone that has just been a great ambassador to New Japan, and very responsive in terms of social media and all that stuff too. Like, I just can't think of a more dedicated uh, guy than Kevin Kelly, and I think he deserves that credit until
I, I
someone
wanna
unseats him.
I want to comment on what you said about him, helping other people. From what I've seen, this is maybe my opinion, but he seems like a real someone who takes his job very seriously and is probably critical of his coworkers. And I've heard him be critical of his coworkers on podcasts and such. And I know that he really supposedly he uses hand signals to run, he'll put up a hand for don't talk and, stuff like that. And he has done a great job in making these other guys, whether it be Chris Charlton, his kind of a number one sidekick, or Gino Gambino. He's done
Rocky
a
Romero.
great Rocky Romero. Yeah, he's done a great job. You could say that he's almost the director of the whole commentary, and because, like I said, he actually uses hand signals to tell people, like he'll point and say, comment here, or put his hand up and say, don't talk now. And so that whole commentary, everything you hear is directed by him. So it's not just him who he is really talented. He is that whole commentary team.
Well, he's
And
actor, producer, writer. He's doing all that stuff, director. And even Don Callis was a guy who they hired, who I don't really did a lot of commentary outside of maybe a spot or two. Well, he did some ECW commentary, so maybe that's a bad example, but he really helped Don Callis become one of the best color guys in the business. And a guy
I don't know
like
if I
Rocky
agree with that
Romero,
at all, but
well, Rocky Romero was a guy that just wasn't very good when he started, but with Kevin Kelly's tutelage became very good. And the same thing with Gino Gambino. I remember when I first heard him, like, who the heck is this guy? He's awful.
yeah,
But
I
then
didn't like him at
slowly but
first.
surely, Kevin helped him find his voice and his spot, and he became very, very good. And Chris Charlton, too, is not necessarily a commentator either. He's kind of, I think, I don't know. See, I'm always wondering why he's not available more to do color commentary with Kevin.
Because I think he works other stuff with New Japan, dude.
I think he must be their main translator and maybe their PR guy or something. I don't know exactly what his role is. But for whatever reason, the bottom line is I don't think he went to broadcasting school. I'll just put it that way.
Well, Kevin Kelly said outright that, and he said this outright. This isn't my opinion. He said that like Chris Charlton has a absolutely terrible voice for broadcasting, and
But he formed him into this kind of like Mike Tenay historian type of color commentator that I think, it took a while to shape that. And yes, right, his voice isn't, he has a very kind of high English accent. And it doesn't work well because usually, your color commentator is usually someone that used to be a wrestler or has kind of an edge to them a little bit. Usually that's kind of the cookie cutter formula. It's very rare that you'll have a color commentator that's just not somebody that's actually been in the ring before.
Yeah, not part of the business before, kind of.
Right.
Kevin Kelly's obviously had a long time in the business doing all sorts of stuff. So,
Right.
good choice, man.
Yeah, dude's dedicated, man. I appreciate that. I can't even remember. Did you? And you want me to introduce this next topic? So, best venue. So, really tough. If you haven't eyewitnessed a lot of wrestling in person, but 2021 there was some pretty cool venues. Um, I know that Arthur Ashe Stadium, where they usually hold the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York, over there in Flushing, Queens, was an awesome venue. Um, I kind of dug Wrestle Grand Slam at the baseball stadium for some reason. I think it was Yokohama Stadium,
So I
and
looked
that
this up,
kind of outdoor
and I
show.
think we might be getting a little mixed up because Wrestling Grand Slam was actually at the Tokyo Dome. It was the one before that was at the baseball stadium, and it might have been last year too.
I'd have to look at that because I couldn't remember. Remember how the Stardom show tags
Or, was
at
this
the
the one when
beginning.
Naito won the belt against
No,
Evil?
no. That was last year for sure.
Okay.
But this year, I think there was a show. Like, yeah, look how prepared we are, everyone. Where they had a Stardom tag matches that they actually put on television this time.
So there was Wrestling Grand Slam at the MetLife Dome on
Wait,
September.
that might be it.
The MetLife Dome?
Yeah,
Okay. That is a
I
pretty
don't
cool
know.
looking place, by the way.
I thought that was
Although
kind of
it
cool. You
looks like
saw,
a giant. Oh yeah, yeah, with the windows.
yes,
Okay.
I kind of like the look of it. I know maybe not everyone did, but I dug it. Not
No,
my
that was
venue
really
of the
cool.
year. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and we don't have to go too deep into this because it's tough because we haven't been to all
yeah,
these venues. But
no,
if you have, that makes it even better. But I guess it's almost like best venue as appearing on TV. But certain places have a certain way of doing all the fans and stuff that just looks better and is more conducive to a good environment for wrestling.
I will go with what I kind of have two picks on this one. One is what I think is just kind of a venue that has just kind of been that most valuable venue, and it has been, you know, kind of rescued wrestling in a way this year, and even into the 2020. But I mean, I cannot. I have so much bias with this, but to me, the best venue was the Torch at the LA Coliseum, which was the outside of the Coliseum where New Japan Resurgence was held, and it was just such a well lit and just beautiful venue. And I thought the matches just popped out on the screen, and a lot of colors, and that impromptu fireworks show that shouldn't have happened just added an element. It was just really beautiful and looked great. And I think you were saying it looked really great on television too, right?
It looked really good on television. I mean, it was cool looking that the backdrop was cool because instead of all the fans, you see like the big wall, and it was so picturesque that there's a lot of pictures of like the wrestlers up on the turnbuckle with the Olympic sign behind them that
The
just look
columns
really
behind them, yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and I mean that Tanahashi match was just such a magical moment. You won the U.S. title in front of the U.S. I mean the Olympic, the place that was held the Olympics in 1932, and it created the imagery that we talk about, the still photos that live on. But that would be my huge sentimental pick. But I just think the venue that it just kind of gave me that sense to normal and everything, and I got to go with Daly's Place. I just feel that they really dug in and were able to create some pretty. It was the first venue to start holding fans again in the country. I think so, right? It wasn't the Thunderdome or whatever,
Well,
but
as far as major wrestling,
there's been a lot of big moments at Daly's Place this year and last year, and I think it's just one of those things where they were able to, and it had a beautiful sunset too, in the distance, and it gave us some good moments, including when, the best friends and what's her names? Was it Trent's mom drove up in the minivan and all that stuff, and FTR and all that, those things, the driving
yeah,
and all
when
that.
they had the truck, and I remember FTR had their truck. And that's how this is not exactly what you're talking about, but FTR debuted driving a truck in there and stuff.
It held wrestling afloat for a while, so I think that's the venue that kind of, to me, stands out as being the venue for a year, because it might have held the most wrestling last year, and really kept things afloat when maybe the fans couldn't be there as much.
Do you know how Tony Khan got the idea for Daly's Place?
Like to use it, or
the setup,
creation
the
of
setup
the venue?
of it, the setup of it, like.
Well, I know that it's basically attached to the football stadium, and it's like a small concert venue, amphitheater kind of deal, right?
It is, but I'll tell you, the story I heard was that Tony Khan had seen an episode of South Park, and in that episode they had like a wrestling event, and it was like an amphitheater with the wrestling event on the stage. And he was like, well, fuck it, we can just do it like that. So the whole amphitheater faces the wrestling, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a theater almost, like with the you know, it's like, it's different from the theater in the round where all the seats are in a big circle. It's like all these seats are just facing one wrestling ring. And so, yeah, he actually got the idea of the setup from South Park.
That is awesome. That is that's really cool. Well, that's someone from our generation, so you got to think South Park is influential in people in our age range for sure. So that's actually kind of cool to hear. And Tony's one of our peers, man. He's grew up just like us, except for with a bunch of money.
Rich as fuck. Yeah. Speaking of our generation, they just came out with a new Reno 911 movie that I really want to watch, although I'm sure it's absolutely terrible. Yeah, they're hunting for Q. So,
oh, that's funny.
And I forgot the name of the actor, but he's definitely put on a lot of weight. I don't remember his name, but I want to watch that on a side note. And,
what's your venue of the year?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, the LA Coliseum. So
okay.
I think you talked about that one, and I think that was awesome. I was kind of thinking Arthur Ashe, but it does look like a big, huge arena. And some of those,
my friend that Will, who came out to visit here, he went to that show, and he said it was a mess there. The line to get in, the food, they just weren't.
I heard the food, they weren't accepting cards or something for a little while there.
They just didn't have enough food.
They're not used to having wrestling shows.
Yeah, they're having those hoity-toity tennis fans, and wrestling fans like to eat and drink beer, and they were just a little overwhelmed by that. And I heard it was kind of a cluster fuck getting the fans in the building too. They just weren't used to having those big rowdy crowds.
Yeah, the dude is probably like, I want some nachos. It's like, sir, we don't sell nachos here. We have this filet mignon. Caviar, filet mignon, or some champagne.
You're supposed to have a sweatshirt tied around your neck, that kind of stuff.
Yes. Do you have your sweatshirt? Yeah, but hey, they loved having AEW there, so they probably made bank off that too.
And they didn't hire enough employees. Like, they were just understaffed too. I heard it was a deal with that. So
I'm sure they'll be back, and they probably learned from it.
Yeah, it was definitely a unique venue, but yeah, to me, it's the LA Coliseum and just the most valuable venue for wrestling this year, which was Daly's Place.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, moving on here. Okay, I got the notes up. Is most athletic, and not a huge amount of options here, although we probably missed a lot. But I'm just going to go ahead and tell you straight out my choice. And my choice was someone you had already mentioned earlier, and that is Jeff Cobb. He's always had that athleticism, but I feel like
Mr. Athletic, I think at one point was his name, right?
Mr. Jeff Athletic. I've he's always had that athleticism, but I feel like maybe it's not that he brought it up to a new level, but it sure seems like he's got those counters going, those New Japan style counters at the end of the match, and he does everything so well. I mean, on top of that, we're talking a dude who does these crazy strength spots, lifts a dude, swings him around, throws him up from the ground, catches him. I mean, the dude can catch like anyone in New Japan, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, he might be the strongest wrestler in the world, pound for pound. I mean, you got other guys that are coming up the ranks, like maybe like an Alex Coughlin, which is like deadlifting dudes. But I mean, and the fact that he just has the most appropriate finishing move with Tour of the Islands to display that strength, and
yeah, and they always say do a finishing move you can do on everyone. You've heard that phrase before, and like, you shouldn't be able to do that move on everyone, but
But he can. Yeah.
he can, man. And not to mention the dude does the fucking standing moonsault, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the
I
size of
mean,
that guy.
he's quite the athlete, and we're talking about a former Olympic. Was he a weight? Oh no, he was Greco-Roman wrestler or something like that.
For what?
For
Guam?
Fiji, Guam.
Fiji?
Yes,
Even though Guam
yes.
is part of America, so
Well, it's still its own country, I think. But you're also talking about a guy who's probably in his late 30s, I think, 38, 39 years old, maybe even 40, and is still moving around on that level, if not getting better, like we talked about in our most, breakout star category. Definitely not a bad choice there.
By the way, I don't want to upset anybody here. Guam is a territory of the United States. It is not a country. So just no one get
Well,
upset.
they field an Olympic team, so there you
Yeah,
go.
but
He can
that's
represent them.
there you go. Yep. So I mean, do you agree with that, or do you have your own opinion on most athletic?
I can't really make a huge argument. Jeff Cobb definitely is up there. I kind of went with somebody a little off my list because I was just kind of really thinking about it. Listen, you got great guys like Ray Phoenix, Hiromu, Dante Martin, who kind of was even kind of a breakout star in a way too. Pac is outstanding. But talking about Pac and kind of pivoting there, I go with Andrade. I just think he might be the best athlete overall. You have other guys like great athletes. Brian Danielson is a great just kind of cardiovascular shape and all that stuff. But I just really think that Andrade can wrestle any level of wrestling. He's the first guy that I've seen that would do the moonsault, land on his feet, and then do the standing moonsault.
Oh yeah. Like he misses them, and then he's like, "Fuck it, I'll do it again."
Yeah, I just think overall, he's probably the slickest, smoothest athlete overall. So that to me is the most athletic.
For a guy of his size, and he seems fairly big, especially as a lucha, like he's almost like a high flyer. He has that Mexican style, and I mean,
Yeah.
when he does the tornado over the ropes and the spin, I mean, dude, lands on his feet. It's like, what the fuck, dude? It's just crazy looking seeing this guy like that spin like a fucking corkscrew through the over the top rope. I mean, it's really impressive, and he's
He
someone.
almost does something a little different every match too. So he's great, man. I see. Maybe this is a guy we could have called underutilized as well.
I think he's kind of where he should be right now. I think we're gonna see more of him in the future. I mean, he only joined AEW this year, right? And so I think we're gonna see. He's dealing with Charlotte breakup right now, so he's got a lot
we'll
on
give
his.
him some time.
He's got a lot. He's got a lot on his plate. All right, let's move on to the funniest wrestler. Now, we already know I'm not a huge fan of the comedy, but it has its place. It has its place, and there are some very funny wrestlers this year. I mean, you could almost say this year was a real good for comedy wrestling, like actually good comedy, because Orange Cassidy, MJF is kind of funny in his own way. Taguchi was great this year, and especially I loved him in Best of the Super Juniors. ELP,
Yeah.
and then even in WWE, Sami Zayn, really kind of has his own quirky things. I don't like it, but I know that you kind of enjoy quirky.
Did you watch? I'm going to stop you right here. Did you watch the Connemara Yano? What was it called? Year-end party match. That was last night. In
Oh, the KOPW? No, I didn't.
Did you? I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie. They took a shot of whiskey every 2 minutes during the match.
Oh, I heard about that. Where they had to get what? Were they just getting progressively drunker as the match went on?
You could tell that they were like. I think they ended up having 4 shots each, which I get. That's a good amount of whiskey to get you pretty buzzed on 4 shots
In 8 minutes?
Exactly. I don't know how much you would feel it right away, but when you're doing athletic, like moving around and stuff, I can imagine they weren't feeling
Surely they
too
were
good.
drinking apple juice, bro.
I mean, maybe, but if they were, it didn't seem like it the way that they were playing with it, especially
They're all turning
Yano.
red.
Oh, it was hilarious. It was really entertaining, and I felt that if they're gonna do that Yano kind of KOPW bullshit, this kind of worked, especially with Connemaro, with the shots. They would go back to a table every 2 minutes, and they'd have to take a shot, and then they would start
In the
20
middle
count,
of
like
wrestling, so would they have to break holds?
yes, there would be like a countdown to when they'd have to go take the shot, and then they'd have to rush out of the ring and go take their shot. And it would be like they could get counted out. So they had like, 1, 2 to take the shot. You should watch it. It was different. It worked. I found it entertaining because if you're going to have a Yano match, just make it something like that. But anyways, if, we're talking about comedy matches, it kind of, I don't know if we had a comedy match of the year, but that's probably would get it.
Yeah. So who do you think is the funniest this year?
When I'm just talking about overall consistency, I know we got a lot of guys that you mentioned. ELP's come around and just been a comedic guy that's pretty good, and just someone that you feel that could. So, to me, the best blend of it is when someone like ELP does comedy. You're like, why doesn't he just like really wrestle? I know he's funny, but like it's something holding him back. I guess that's the heel side of things, where they always go for the shortcut, I got to go with Orange Cassidy because he blends the comedy and just makes it part of his, where like you couldn't imagine him not doing it.
He does such a great job. He does such a great job of blending the comedy with the serious wrestling, and I think he's the best at that than anybody. Like his match with Adam Cole on Dynamite was actually incredible, and
really
I mean,
good,
it's really cool how he can turn it on and he can go from being funny and laugh at him to just being like dead serious, which it's like almost like he's going Super Saiyan.
And here's a guy that can probably get on that honorable mention of most athletic as well. I mean, I don't know too many people that could do a kip up with their hands in their pockets.
Well, have you ever tried?
I can't even do a kip up.
I can't even. I've never been able to do it my whole life.
But some of the things this dude does, I don't know, man. Like you said, he just blends the seriousness and the little kicks. I can understand people thinking that's kind of, bullshit. But then he'll just go and do like a spinning tornado DDT right off of it. And it's like, okay, never mind.
I've seen the dude do crazy transitions with like arm drags and stuff, with the hands in the pockets. And he
has like this kind of nonchalant kind of like laissez-faire like demeanor when he's doing them, effortless, which is funny because he makes it look easy. So to me, it's almost like he makes a humor out of how easy things are for him to do. But then he sells like crazy too. When someone gives him a shot, he doesn't sell it and get up and smile and put on his sunglasses or whatever.
No, he actually sells quite a bit.
He is an underrated seller. He's really good at selling. Because when he gets hit, he gets hit.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that's a good choice. I decided to go with someone that I kind of forgot about, and this was a guy who didn't spend like all year being funny. Is actually didn't do a whole lot of comedy stuff, but what he did do, I thought hit pretty hard. And so I went with Brock Lesnar. I mean, Brock.
Hey, there you go.
Brock. I mean, this new kind of babyface run that he's had, to me, it's just like when he turns on the funny, like when, he doesn't, it just works. And he doesn't even necessarily not always try to be funny, but that's what makes it even better. Like the dude is doing the boombox dance with the Money in the Bank. Now that was a couple years ago, right? But still, it's like, it became like became the biggest meme in wrestling for a while. So seeing him with Sami Zayn and like the way he promos and the way he talks, I really love it. It's actually made him like a likable character, where I've always thought his character was lame, but he's the beast, right? But this comedy side of him, I thought, has just been absolutely great, coming out in overalls and beating people up and shit. So, yeah, props to Brock Lesnar for being funny this year. And that was you who brought that up, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, it's funny. You talk about it's almost like the hook effect, but with the comedy. Like, we've never really seen this from Brock Lesnar in any like sizable dose. We're like, you know what? I think he could be a good comedy guy. We've always kind of seen Brock Lesnar as that kind of hired mercenary, suplex,
Kills
collect paycheck,
anybody.
and go away for
Yeah.
6 months and hold on to the title and just kind of annoy us. But honestly, the last 2-3 months of WWE has probably been, probably the most entertaining thing to watch. And I've never thought I would say that about something like Brock Lesnar, if he's not wrestling. I can't wait to see Brock Lesnar come out. Like, no, like, I've never really said that. And it's just been hilarious. The guy's got a flip phone. I mean, just stuff like that. Like, of course Brock has a flip phone, right?
Of course, right? He just lives wherever and doesn't even, he's probably too busy on the farm to deal with actual apps and games and stuff. So,
I mean, he's probably just been told, "Hey, just do something a little more yourself, and this is what you get." And it's been really great. And don't get me wrong, I think Sami Zayn has been the absolutely perfect foil for him, in introducing that type of personality to him. So, good job, Sami Zayn, as well.
good. Well, yeah, you're right. He has been a good foil for him. I can at least say that. So, moving on from funniest, we're going to move on to people who can be funny, but a lot of times they're more mean than anything, and that is the best heel wrestler. And there's a good amount of choices here. Omega was a heel all year. Young Bucks were heels. Miro did some great work too. There's actually quite a bit of names. You could. Some people really loved. Now I'm having trouble remembering his name. Matt Cardona. Some people really liked his heel work this year.
Baron Corbin, maybe.
But what, Happy Corbin? He was a babyface this year.
But no, I don't. I think now that he's happy, he's not. But when he was like kind of the bum Corbin or sad Corbin, where he lost all his money, there was some very entertaining stuff that came out of that. But you know what? Like, this brings up the point. I've heard this being discussed in a lot of, podcasts. Are there really any true heels anymore? You want to be a cool heel if you're really hated. But, back in the day, like, they would slash the Midnight Express's tires, or, the Four Horsemen or whatever. I just think that fans are different these days, because we learn to appreciate, nowadays we analyze,
we appreciate heel work.
The performance. We analyze the performance. You would never hear somebody in 1987 say, "That Arn Anderson is a really good heel. Man, his work is good." They would say, "Fuck Arn Anderson. I'm going to stab him if he comes close to me." You know what I mean?
But
we looked at it differently.
And I think it's made it better because, when in old days, like, being a heel was to literally be hated, to literally be disliked. And, nowadays I'm not going to say that it's good to be cheered, but, we participate in wrestling as fans. We boo because that's what we're supposed to do. And that doesn't always happen. I mean, you have cases where the heel, like Becky Lynch, for example, where the heel is getting cheered. But to me, like, even if the heel is over, like, if they're a really good heel, they're still going to get the boos because the fans know, like, we got to boo this guy. Jericho was a great heel when he was heel in AEW. And, of course, we all loved Jericho. But, like, everyone booed him out of the building. And they, when I went and saw AEW live, there was even the drunk people actually screaming, like, "I'll fuck you up" and stuff, So,
but then there's people, those are the same people that will acknowledge, like, yeah, this dude's doing a really great job. And, it's like a guy who's a great villain in a movie. Like, they're going to say, "Man, was Daniel Day-Lewis great in Kings of New York. He was a villain and a horrible person, but
Oh, I was thinking
you
of
still thought he was
the oil
badass.
movie. What was that oil movie?
Oh,
There will be blood. My God,
Similar characters.
very crazy motherfucker in that movie,
Yeah.
alcoholic. But yeah. So my choice this year was, I don't think it's off the beaten path, but it's not the number one obvious choice. I went with Roman Reigns because for years we wanted him to be heel. He turned heel a few years ago, and I just think he's done such a great job. For someone that doesn't watch the product, whenever I tune in to see Roman Reigns, I'm like, dude, this guy is the biggest, badass, coolest heel there is. I mean, I would love to boo him out of a building because, everyone booed him out of the building before. Now they can actually do it, although I think he gets cheered now. But just this whole thing, acknowledge me, the way it's gone, the
Head
Paul
of the
Heyman.
table, tribal chief.
Yeah, the Paul Heyman stuff going on.
The dynamic with the bloodline, right? Yeah, it's all been good.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. Him being really condescending even to his family and stuff like that. I mean, him with what was it that Vince McMahon was saying? Oh, this was worth millions and millions, and he goes, well, that's going to be my next contract, and just stuff like that. Like, he comes off as the coolest heel to me, and I feel like he's a pretty confident guy in real life, as he should be. And while I don't think he's a dick, I've heard he's a real nice guy, actually. Like, I think it's cool that he gets to be honest about his confidence when he's actually in the ring now. So I thought Roman Reigns was my favorite heel of the year, and that's coming from someone who doesn't watch SmackDown every week. So,
well, and he's the biggest guy at the biggest company in the world, so there's no fault with that. I went with kind of I'm going to go with the more obvious thing. I'm going to go with MJF. He offered maybe the biggest, most entertaining non-match moment with CM Punk when they went back and forth with their promo. And of course he was the heel in that, but he just goes to a lot of the basics of heel work, which is, well, first of all, he does it inside and outside the ring, and on social media and whatever. Like, he never turns it off, which I think is something that's great. And
it's hard. It's hard to see any clips of him not in character. The only time I've seen it was with when he did the drinking show, Shot of Brandy, and he tries to stay in character the whole time, but a few times he slips out of it, and you're like, oh wait, he's actually a normal dude.
Right. And I think I've seen him slip in and out of it here and there. But for the most part, he's pretty true with it. But the one thing that he does well is a good heel puts bits of truth in what they say. And he is so good at doing that. And I don't know. I mean, the guy's, he's probably going to be the biggest star in AEW in 3 or 4 years. Like,
shit, he could be the biggest star in WWE in 3 or 4 years, dude.
That is true too. There's a guy who I think would just definitely go over there, and how they would use him there. It might be actually, he's the one guy that I think could cross thrive over in WWE. Yeah,
because he's muscular. He's got his verbal ability. He reminds me of The Rock. Like, he's almost what you would call is like all arounder. He has it all, and I mean, yeah.
And the thing that's so great about him is he probably does have he's a really good athlete, and he probably does have this secret babyface moveset that we won't ever see until the time comes.
Although, is he one of those heel? I don't know, man. To me, there's people who have just done so much evil shit that I can never actually think of them as a babyface, like Randy Orton. I'm like, bro, you were kicking old men in the head. Like, I can never buy you as a... So, I don't know. I guess, like, in wrestling, they switch back and forth.
He has been. So, but, it would take something. But I'm just saying, like, I think... his in-ring, I think he's a little bit, we just haven't seen a lot of it because he's so good at, I'm a heel, I'm going to do the minimal amount required that I need to win a match.
Yeah, and then
you
he'll
know,
run from people and stuff too. The classic. He's
the
actually
chicken
kind of
shit
a
stuff. Yeah,
chicken shit. Yeah. Have you seen his audition for Tough Enough?
I think so. Yeah,
He's playing the same
yeah.
character, dude.
Well, he's had this character for ages, and I can't believe WWE
Passed
didn't
on him.
swoop him up. I
Instead, they
mean, I
chose
guess
the
it's
Velveteen Dream.
yeah, I guess. But yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, he's that segment with CM Punk is obviously one of the biggest segments of the year. So, and that was because of his heel work. And that's basically why I went with MJF. I know it's the obvious cookie cutter answer for this year, but
But that's okay. I
too bad to
mean,
deny.
it's like good booking. I mean, sometimes it just is what it is, man. You know, that's just where you go. MJF was just awesome. I mean, he's just and he's got heat, bro. Like people boo the hell out of him, except when they actually made him play babyface for one week, which was kind of crazy too.
Right.
So, speaking of babyface, let's move on to the flip side. Best babyface of the year. And like you said, there's shades of gray. I mean, things have changed a lot. But some characters are just, quote unquote, the good guy. And, you know, we like to cheer for them. We're fans of them. And they are that babyface that just, like, they sometimes might have a squeaky clean image. So, who did you think was played the best babyface this year?
Well, I went a little back and forth on this one, but I just kind of with just the transformation and involvement of this dude from where he was a few years ago to now. Adam Page, I went with his babyface of the year. I know we've talked about this on the show a few different times. The show, whatever. We took a guy like Tony Khan took a guy that was like this, upper mid, no, not even upper mid card, just mid card, lower mid card, run of the mill, Bullet Club member, and of course with the hard work of Adam Page, of course, and turned him into the biggest baby face in the business. He's got the cowboy shit slogan, and I think if he went to WWE and wrestled Roman Reigns, people would be hugely behind him. He's gone out there with kind of the little bit of the alcohol gimmick which I guess sometimes is a little bit of a, easy to, the very stereotypical thing to kind
Well,
of
it's kind
we've
of a
seen
weakness.
before. And
It's just kind of a weakness,
yeah,
though, too, with
like a
him. Where,
kryptonite.
yeah, like a kryptonite thing. I mean, where at times it's been like, oh, he's drinking too much, kind of a thing, which is a little bit. It's almost too real of a story, kind of with Moxley. But I mean, that's kind of like his kryptonite. So. And he uses
And
it to celebrate. I mean, look, all the fans drink anyway, so it's kind of like, hey, I'm one of you guys.
I mean, it just kind of reminds me of like, the Sons of Anarchy characters and stuff like that, where you root for them, but you're just like, oh, come on, don't pick up that drink. You can do this. You find yourself rooting for the guy to get over the issues. And I don't know, man. I mean, just to see this guy evolve into not only just this big giant baby face, but also in ring has delivered some just classic moments this year as well. And
Well, and
even
we're seeing a
last
lot
year.
more seen a lot more of it now too, as obviously he took that little break, right? And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, he had the Omega program. They finally did that. They held off for a while, and I mean, I was having trouble kind of getting behind him for a while. I thought I didn't like how people said he was like the whatever misplaced millennial. That rubbed me the wrong way. But I will say that it was Full Gear. Full Gear was their match, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, the Full Gear, like that intro for him was really great. He comes in the Tesla and stuff like that, and when that package they did, that kind of made me get behind him. That actually pushed me. I mean, that's what they're made for, right? Those packages are made
Yeah.
for that, and I think they did a good job to the point where this was a tough one for me, but I think I
Right.
agree. I think I agree with you.
All right, yeah. I mean, you had some good honorable mentions, like a guy like Darby Allin. That's just, virtually loved, but there's just not that, moments of triumph and overcoming of odds as much as you have with somebody like Adam Page.
I want to say though, there is to me there is almost nothing more badass on the whole fucking wrestling scene than Darby Allin suicide diving into a guy that is face to face with another dude and taking his place. Do you know that spot where like two dudes are outside facing and he dives into one and then stands there? Like that spot, dude, is so sick. Like, you're like,
just
holy
doing
shit.
that coffin drop to the outside of the ring, or he did it into something, and I was like, oh my god, what is he thinking? But he's a crazy dude, man. And I mean, you got your other consummate baby faces like Hiromu Takahashi, who's just so universally loved, and he was injured for a good part of the year, so that's maybe what
Well, it's the state of New Japan, I think. I mean, yes,
Right,
he was injured,
yeah.
but Hiromu was great. He was great in Best of the Super Juniors. In fact, he was so great that I'm just shocked not more people talk about it. But his selling is incredible. His screaming, his just like God, now I'm remembering at the end of like Wrestle Kingdom when he was out there screaming and the show went off the air. Or one of those shows. It was like watching a nightmare. But his
I
scream...
think it was was it the evil match at Dominion or something?
Yeah, it was like one of those, and he just and then it cuts off the air. You're like, whoa, dude.
And another Hiroshi Tanahashi is just the everyman's babyface hero kind of thing. And but just the thing with Adam Page is like he had to have the Dark Order convince him to like, come on, man, we need you, and just you were rooting for the guy and you were hoping he puts it together. And I think that's just made him the grand, the slam dunk babyface of the year.
I think the only thing with Adam Page was that like I don't think Kenny Omega is the best heel, and I just think they go more for the comedy shtick with the heel work, and so the Adam Page versus Omega, that build up, it's like if it was MJF, I think it would have been even more of an intense build up, but that story went on for years. And, they obviously worked together in Bullet Club and all that stuff. So I know why they did it. And I know why they booked it that way. But, I do agree with you. Adam Page, babyface of the year. Honorable mention to Jungle Boy, right? Always a good babyface, at least the last few years.
Yeah. Definitely.
And probably will be for a while. Darby Allin definitely has a heel run in him. I'm pretty damn sure.
Definitely. Definitely. And then you also have guys like, Moxley, who's just, everyone loves Moxley and what he's going through right now. And once he comes back, I mean,
it's going to be like, look at next year.
Huge.
It's and no one likes this, right? No one likes that bad things happen to wrestlers and then, they come back, but it's just what happens. That's just how the world works. I mean, when Roman Reigns came back from his therapy, I mean, it was like they stopped booing him almost, and that's just how it works. It's just part of life, man. You incorporate real life into the character and people react to you. And even if it's for a shitty reason, that's just is what it is. And when Moxley comes back, it's going to be, talk about like best babyface next year. That might be huge.
People love when you overcome a hardship. So that automatically, is going to get you some cheers. And that's going to be a huge pop when he comes back for sure. And I'll probably be the moment of next year that if we had to predict something, Moxie's return might be the biggest moment of 2022 when that happens.
I was and just on a side note, I was thinking about him, man. If he's still in the rehab and stuff, I mean, he's really taking it seriously. I bet you he'll meet some really cool people in rehab. I've been there and made some lifelong friends there and stuff. So I really hope he's taking that look inward and just learning to love himself again. Shout outs to Jon Moxley. Now we move on to our main event, as you would, although we have a few of them, but these are our best of the best categories. And so straight into it, this first one we'll talk about is just best wrestler, just straight up best wrestler. Now this is going to be one guy that we're choosing, but you know, the best wrestler of the year. A lot of choices here, right? I mean, a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So
I think there's, one that kind of pulled ahead at the end of the pack. To me, at least. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bryan Danielson. Not only has the guy, gave us a crazy 60-minute Broadway match with Adam Page, the baby face of the year. He also was at WrestleMania main eventing this year as well. And not only has he delivered with AEW since he got there with just match after match of incredible in-ring performing, but he was also doing it at WWE earlier in the calendar year. So, I mean, doing it in multiple companies, without a forbidden door effect, it's just hard to ignore. I mean, especially for a guy who we thought was out of wrestling 4 or 5 years ago, and
Aubrey Edwards crying in the front row.
It has put together arguably the greatest in-ring,
maybe Renaissance,
New Japan Renaissance that we've seen this year. I mean, he had that great WrestleMania match with Edge. He's had some other good matches at WWF that escaped me this year, but just his run in New Japan, all of them have been, from Miro to Eddie Kingston.
His run in AEW.
Has been great. So, I mean, to me, right now, today, he's the best wrestler in the world.
The guy really has not had a bad match since he didn't really have bad matches anyways, right? But, I mean, dude has wrestled, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12... Wow, he's wrestled 14, 15, 16. He's wrestled like 18 matches in AEW, and none of them have been bad.
And he's wrestled as a heel and a babyface this year as well. So, I mean, he's just done everything. And he might be someone that is just as good of a heel as he is a babyface. I still think he's a slightly better babyface, but he can put on some heel work too. He's very versatile.
Dude, he is such a good heel. And although, he's not really playing that white meat babyface in AEW. He is playing the more edgy.
No, he's a heel now. Yeah.
But I mean, even before that, right? Now he might have been knowing that he was
true.
Turning soon after, but because
there was a level of pretentiousness that he came in with, for sure.
But he probably knew he was going heel. By the way, did he wrestle under a mask at all? Because I'm seeing that this wrestler named Infinito defeated Ray Jazz, and it is listed as Bryan Danielson, and it was at AEW Dark. Have you heard of that at all?
I have not.
I might have to check that out. There's a Infinito versus Ray Jazz, about a 4-minute match on AEW Dark 19 at Universal Studios. So didn't realize that if he wrestled under a mask like Cody did. But yeah, he's done a great job. I'm looking here at his matches this year. And yeah, like you said, we have all sorts of matches in WWE. Royal Rumble, Steel Cage against Jey Uso. We had a couple matches against Jey Uso. We had Roman Reigns against Daniel Bryan in a career match. So, I mean, he ended his career, dude. Roman Reigns ended Daniel Bryan's career, but maybe it was for the best. Then you had his debut, which was a time limit draw against Kenny Omega.
Yeah, it's just hard to argue this. I think you're getting kind of convinced yourself, but to me, he's beyond the obvious choice.
So, I want to say this New Japan's had a tough year, and I don't want to harp on about it because it is what it is, and we all know about the clap crowds. I don't think the booking's been as bad as people say it has been, and I actually think it's improved this year. But I mean, if there were...
They've been dealt a tough hand. But I will say this before I close the chapter on Daniel Bryan, and it just occurred to me, I'm picking a wrestler that seems like an obvious choice to me, but he has not held a world title this year, or any title. So that's
that really doesn't mean anything to whether they're the best wrestler or the most over or anything, sure. Right? So I just want to say, if they had crowds in Japan, I'm pretty sure, without a doubt, my best wrestler would be Shingo. Like, I'm just sure of it. I mean, I love Shingo. I mean, he's just amazing, man.
Well, he's on my wall right there behind us, so.
Yeah, I mean, this dude, talk about dealing a tough hand, he kind of reminds me of Drew McIntyre, who just, like, had this whole run, but under, not the best circumstances. So, I mean...
Yeah, it just kind of reminds me of, just like when Diesel was the champion, when, the ratings and the revenue were at an all-time low. It's like, can you really blame one person for that? But, yeah, he was the pandemic champ, was Drew McIntyre, and obviously, I love Drew McIntyre. I don't know about you, but I think he's great, and... It's a shame he didn't get a better run in front of... He still has a chance to have a run, but yeah, Shingo's really put that company on his back. And I'm pretty sure you could, go match for match with Bryan Danielson in terms of the quality and the guys he's gone against. A much shorter menu of wrestlers than Daniel Bryan's had access to, obviously. But... Ibushi, Ospreay, Tanahashi, Okada.
Ospreay, that's one who also, because of the situation, I can't really say he's the wrestler of the year, but the matches he has had have been fucking awesome. It's just,
I mean, he had injuries that kind of cut it short. But no, I mean, say what you want about the guy. The guy's a bit of a, a dumbass and kind of a weird guy, and a little tone deaf at times of things, but every time he gets in the ring, he delivers, and you can't deny that.
Yeah, although I've heard people question if he even had an injury, but that's obviously, we don't know really fully, but...
well, yeah, whatever. We're going to assume he did for the...
Why not?
All I know is that he didn't wrestle for a good 4 or 5 months, so there you go.
Yeah. All sorts of people. Big E was mentioned, right? I mean...
Even Big E just had a huge... It was more of, like, you can even call him a babyface of the year candidate, too. We probably should have given him a little more love in that. I don't know one person that doesn't like Big E, and he got a nice crowning moment this year with Money in the Bank, and he is the current world champion, so you definitely maybe giving Big E a little more of a run with babyface of the year rather than wrestler of the year, I think.
I agree with that. Any of the New Day, actually, they're always well loved by the fans, and but Big E is, I guess, there's no leader of the group, and Kofi's kind of the older, more experienced one, but Big E is like the man from the group, and he's finally had his moment, and I guess we're just kind of waiting to see more of that and what happens with that. So I can't really say he's the wrestler of the year. Okada, Ibushi, I think they had good years. Ibushi actually didn't have a good year physically, which sucks. No. But in ring, he did have a lot of good matches. Edge was there. He had good matches.
Definitely.
So, but I'm gonna go. This is where I'm gonna go with the quote unquote obvious choice, and I'm gonna say that Kenny Omega.
Okay.
I don't love this version of Kenny Omega compared to the cleaner, but I'm sure I'm not alone in that. But the fact is that the dude, was just having all these great matches this year. And, in fact, I'm looking at his match guide here, and he had this string from, May until... Wow, he didn't wrestle for 5... Okay, no, I'm sorry. It's good. It's September to... Okay, that's last year. I'm sorry. Okay, we're going forward. So he had these strings of just awesome matches. He had... one against Jon Moxley, the Exploding Barbed Wire Death Match. Now, we're not talking about the ending here, which sucked,
right.
But,
right.
He did Kenny Omega and Kenta versus Jon Moxley and Lance Archer, and that was an awesome match. He went against Matt Sydal. They had a good match. I mean, it just goes on and on. He had a match with Rich Swann that was really good. He had an Orange Cassidy versus Pac versus Kenny Omega match that was really good. He had a Sami Callihan. It's just, the list goes on. My favorite match with him was with Christian this year. I thought that was Christian's best match.
I agree.
And I thought it was my favorite Kenny Omega match. He,
And we'll probably be talking about that again in a few minutes.
yeah, yep. And then he had the match with Danielson, right? I
Yep.
mean, that match was fucking awesome. 5 stars in the Observer. And he had the Adam Page match, which was just this crowning thing at the end of the year. And in fact, he had such a run that, I mean, he literally had to take a lot of time off and get worked on.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, he was doing this hurt for so long as well. I mean, both shoulders, his knee, and I think, and also dealing with vertigo, which I'm pretty sure is a very difficult ailment to deal with as a athlete, professional wrestler type of occupation. Vertigo is probably not a good thing to have. Doesn't make it any easier. When you don't have your equilibrium and you're trying to hit a V trigger, I'm pretty sure that's rather difficult. Yeah, or when you have someone on your shoulders and you have vertigo, I mean, that's probably not safe for anyone. But hard to argue that point. You know, he also carried the company. Yeah, maybe he's not our favorite version of Kenny Omega, but in the ring, he still delivered like he always has.
I'll tell you this though, I'm looking at Cage Match. Not saying that's the most legit thing in the world, but it is good because it's an opinion of lots of people. I'm looking at his. It's not I was saying I like the cleaner better. Out of his 20th highest rated matches, only 3 are in AEW, and the highest AEW match is his tag match against the Young Bucks. It's funny, you look at the top 7 of his matches: Omega, Omega, Naito, Naito, Omega, Omega, Ishii.
Yeah.
So it's like, excuse
Yeah,
me, Okada. I meant not, but Okada, Naito,
Naito.
Naito. Yeah,
I don't think a wrestler may never go on a string of quality matches like that in a 2 or 3 year period ever again.
yeah,
We're gonna look back
2017,
at that as-
2018.
Yeah,
Historical.
I mean, to me, the Naito G1 final from, what was it, 2017 or 16?
It looks like there's 2000. They wrestled in 2016 and 2017, and both were in the summer.
Won. The one where Naito won. I think that was 2017, right? Because then Tanahashi won the year after, and then Ibushi won 2 in a row. That's the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen. That G1 final, I think it was 27. Dude, I just love that match. People weren't really expecting Naito to win either. Of course, they crapped the bed with the Naito moment at the Wrestle Kingdom that year, and it was a very flat match, and that's when Jericho came over to go against Kenny, which was also awesome too. But and then those Okada matches. I mean, come on. I don't think
we might have to do a wrestling and 2017 2018 New Japan, because those 2 years definitely deserve to be talked
16
about.
16 through 18, or 16 through 17, 18. Just basically from 2016 till when the Elite left. When they came to Long Beach. And did that first time here, and Kenny won the U.S. title. That was just the top of the game right there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can do a whole episode on that. But for me, I think Kenny Omega had a great year, and it's just crazy to think that's not even one of his best years. But I mean, it was great for him. Danielson and Omega, I think those are 2 great picks, and just really. I think we're both thankful that those guys put their body on the line to entertain us this year.
I agree.
Moving on to best women's wrestler. I would say it's, some people might say, best wrestler, best women's wrestler. I would say that, we could have just gone best men's wrestler. We could have put that. But, I think the women deserve a shout out definitely as well. And so... we have this category here. Well, who did you think was the best women's wrestler of the year?
I went with Britt Baker. I just think that she was the most dominant. And just, she's just got a lot of stuff going on with her. She's had the iconic moments, the imagery that I always talk about, the still photos, the bloody face, the whole DMD being a dentist thing. She's just a great heel.
She really
She
found her
had
character
probably
last year. I mean, or was it 2 years
she
ago?
cut. Yeah, they tried to bring her in as kind of a baby face, if I remember
Oh,
correctly.
and it
And
was cringe for me, dude. I remember thinking she was
yeah,
dead.
yeah, and I just think that she is just very dynamic. And I know you got maybe some people that are a little better in the ring, like your Charlottes, your Sasha Banks, your Bianca Belairs, your maybe even Becky Lynch,
Anyone in Japan.
and anyone in Japan. Which I was just gonna say, I just am not educated enough to make a pick from over there. To be honest with you, I've seen some people that I've really enjoyed, but it's been usually at those tag matches that they had at in New Japan.
Wrestle Kingdom.
Um, you also got Thunder Rosa, who I just think is a great baby face and might be the eventual person that takes the title off. I think there's some underrated stars like Hikaru Shida is just great, and I really think she didn't. Although she held the title for most of the pandemic, which I believe deserves to be at least an honorable mention um, for her. But to me, I think Britt Baker just had that real dominant personality and had some great matches and iconic moments that you know just put her above the rest.
Yeah, yeah. I have a different choice for my favorite, but I do agree that she's done that. She's a mover too. I mean, she's a needle mover. She does affect the ratings. Her YouTube numbers do well. Yeah, she's really found herself. She's working with her husband now, which got to be pretty cool. I mean, that doesn't really make her the best, but
I don't think they're married yet, but yeah,
oh, her boyfriend. Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, and just her gimmick with Tony is great. I mean,
oh
there's
yeah.
like that underlying like he
Rebel's great
wants
with
her.
her. Jamie Hayter, I think they have a nice little click.
Yeah, and
I
Rebel is
you know,
hilarious.
yeah, she's great. Yeah,
A lot of people think she's annoying, but I like that's the whole point, dude.
no,
I like when she's screaming and stuff. I think she's self-aware enough to know that seems like an idiot out there. So, yeah, especially they did their Christmas thing and what was it? She was wearing like a full body nighty kind of thing. It was so funny. My favorite women's wrestler this year was Utami Hayashishita, and I know that a lot of people that are into Japanese wrestling, like there's so many choices. Hayashishita, Shuri, Tom, is it Tom Nakano? I mean, her with her new group that she found, the Cosmic Angels. There's Julia. You know, that
right.
Stardom group is all really great, but Julia had a lot of time injured. She obviously lost her hair this year, which was a pretty intense thing. But for me, Hayashishita, she was the one. I think, like honestly, most Stardom fans are going to say it's Shuri. Shuri with a real background in kickboxing and MMA, but we'll get to it later. But I thought it was Hayashishita. She she's got the look, first of all, for me. She looks amazing. She just in ring, she's just brutal. She's dominating. Not quite as much of a bruiser as Shuri, but I just think this has really been her year. And you know, Stardom obviously agreed, giving her the championship, their red belt, which is kind of their main belt. And yeah, man, I mean, not quite the mainstream pick there, but you know, those women in Stardom, man, like, you know, I really think that a lot of people, you know, for a while, NXT and WWE, like, everyone's like, oh, they're the best women, but I don't know, man. Stardom, again, like, we don't get a chance to watch it as much. Neither of us have a Stardom subscription.
No,
I did for a little bit, but it was kind of on a slow month. And also, one of the problems with Stardom is they don't show a lot of their stuff live, which is an issue. I'm up at 3:30, and when I have to watch it 3 days after, and all the news is out. That does kind of, you know, part of the appeal
spoil it.
of yeah, part of the appeal of wrestling is watching it live, and anything can happen.
So
So
they don't even put it up the next day.
no, not always, and I could be wrong on that, but I feel like they work on it. They put some like subtitles on the promos and stuff, and then they release it like a
Right.
few days later. Now they're
And it costs just as much as a New Japan subscription.
yeah, it does. It costs just as much. I really wish they would do a Bushi Road subscription and just have both of them under one umbrella. But I guess they're on they're part of a different TV network or something. Then
I think that's been an issue with, and well, New Japan won't even put themselves on iOS or Sony. So I think that's a even bigger step.
At least
Getting them
at
to
least they
actually
let
use it.
AEW use film like they did that Owen Hart tribute recently, and they used a bunch of New Japan footage for that. Just
Yeah, I heard Rocky Romero has been somebody that's been helping them get that footage. So yeah, Rocky's been on a lot of AEW, so that leads me to believe that he's been the big time liaison with that partnership.
you know he has been, dude. You know he's friends with that whole crew. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah,
and
yeah.
he was a leader in New Japan backstage. So, I mean, obviously
Hmm.
he's going to be the liaison between New Japan, Tony Khan, and
Yeah, he's I think with New Japan now in this partnership too, but he was that liaison with the Gaijin talent and New Japan,
oh yeah, definitely,
and
man.
still
And
is
Tony
actually.
Khan's probably a huge fan of him since he's a huge fan of New Japan, or at least was. He probably still is. Probably doesn't watch it, but I mean, he
No, I'm sure
thinks
he
New
does.
Japan's awesome. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought Hayashishita, man, she just. I'll have to send you. I'll find her
Yes.
one of her matches with Shuri, but she had like this trilogy with Shuri this year, and every match was good. And we'll talk a little bit more.
Yeah, making my pick seem so ignorant with that,
No,
buddy.
it's
Thanks a
it's
lot.
it, look, man. I wish I could be talking more about Dragon Gate because they have amazing wrestlers here, but I just didn't watch enough. I
But I was just gonna say, I was looking at our list and just going back to just one sentence I think deserves to be said about, an honorable mention for the best men's wrestler. I hate to throw it back to that, but Nick Gage had a great year and exploded as a huge just kind of star too that I think deserves a little bit of credit. But I just wanted to pop that in there real
Well,
quick.
and this is another one of those things where I just didn't watch him. I didn't see him against Jericho. Didn't watch him with Matt Cardona or John Moxley or any of that stuff. And I'm not a big fan of deathmatch, anyways.
Neither am I. Yeah.
So it,
Well, he also had that Dark Side of the Ring episode on him too.
and I didn't even see
That
that.
blew him up a little bit. Yeah, it's worth checking out.
I definitely know he's got a good promo because, supposedly he's really from the streets and shit. And I've been to jail, so there's some kind of street credit
Yeah,
there.
he
Robbed, or
literally
was a
robbed
robber?
banks and went to jail. So
Probably went to prison for a little bit.
yeah, yeah, he did.
So I'm actually gonna use this Hayashishita to transition directly into the best women's
Go for it.
match because the best women's match to me was Shuri versus Hayashishita in their big tie, their big draw match. These girls just beat the shit out of each other for half an hour. And I mean, it was just nonstop violence. Forearms, slaps, chops, slams, one thing after another for 30 minutes. The match ends, it's a draw. And, the fans are pissed and everyone's like, what's going on? And they come out, the head guy of Stardom, Rossi, comes out and let's go another 15 minutes. So they wrestle another 15 minutes. And I swear, like people in the stands are crying and stuff. It was so intense and so great, and that's part of the reason I loved Hayashishita so much. Now I didn't watch their other matches, and I heard one of them was even better. But that match to me for a women's match, it was just so intense. It kind of some people compared it to Okada Omega a little bit. It wasn't nearly as good as that, but just that intensity and the draw and the emotion. That was my women's match of the year.
I didn't see
So
that match, and I want to see it.
I'll find one of
Man,
them to send you because I'm gonna watch those other ones too. And everyone tells me they're so good, but the one that I did see, I saw live, and but what women's match did you see that you liked? Because that would be kind of weird if you
I,
chose one you didn't.
there were some pretty good ones this year, but I went with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. Um, just thought it was a great match. A lot of
Oh yeah,
um, great. I know that there was also recently the Serena Deeb and um,
Hikaru Shida.
Hikaru Shida match, which was awesome as well. So that almost took it away from that, but I don't know, man. Nothing will beat the bloody face Brie Baker and all that stuff. That was just awesome.
It was kind of an
And it makes
iconic
you,
moment for AEW to me.
yes, that's what I think really that was when you really felt like they were figuring out what they needed to do with the women's division, because they took a year to really figure out what they were going to do with it, and they lost Riho for a while, which I think they must have had bigger plans for. Um, and it kind of stuttered when she had to stay in the country, and she held that title for a long time. And they gave it to Sheeta, and she pretty much did beat almost everyone they had that was around. Um, but obviously, a lot of people were kind of criticizing the division for how it was being organized. But once Britt Baker took hold, and that was really her moment there, was when she was against Thunder Rosa. And
Now,
I believe she didn't have the title yet, of course.
She didn't, and I remember some people were complaining because she was such a baby face in that match. She's this heel, but everyone was really cheering for her to win, which she didn't.
I think once she got the crimson mask and got bloody, they started rooting for her too, and that was not part of the match. That wasn't like planned. So it was just one of those things where if someone gets bloody, that's I thought that was just kind of an organic moment.
You know what, though? Talk about iconic, like, wrestling visuals. I mean, blood on the face is always a big one, but rarely does the blood on the face just is so memorable. I mean, yeah, you have the one with Austin, right? That's maybe the best example. Him tapping out, or him not tapping out, him passing out. But right. The visual of her, and it's also partly because they really marketed the visual afterwards, but that visual of her with the blood mask on, going Muda level, whatever,
Crimson Mask, yeah.
That's just an image that I'll never forget, man.
Well, and just compare it to the Becky Lynch from a year or so before, where she broke her nose in that little melee with SmackDown and Raw because, what's her name? Nia Jax broke her nose on accident, and she was up in the stands with the bloody nose too. That was a similar moment. You rarely see the women with the blood all over their face, and I think that made it a little more iconic and special for sure.
Yeah, it's just sad that we didn't have Nia Jax versus Nyla Rose this year, because I think that would have been a big contender for best women's match of the year.
The road, but I think Nia's done wrestling. I don't think she wants to do it anymore. But
I think she said she does not want to.
I know I've told you this before. Like, I'm big on, if recipe for a great match, you got to have the stunning still image that would go on the back of a t-shirt or a poster or in the magazine. Like, I don't know if that's as important as it used to be, but I think you need that to, it's one of the formulas for a great match.
I think that visual is huge. When I really think of the best matches, I can always, like, when I think of Okada versus Tanahashi, when they had their 2 Wrestle Kingdoms in a row, like, I have that image in my head of Okada holding Tanahashi for the Rainmaker and him doing the pose and all that stuff, which actually, like a lot of his matches, it's very memorable for me, with him against Omega. I think of Omega doing the drop kick to the back of the head, that spot he does. Yeah. So
absolutely.
I totally agree. And as far as American and non-Japanese matches go, I think that was the best women's match. Brutal, too. Very violent.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Was it a Thunder Driver through the table that finished it, right? The Thunder Fire.
I believe so. Yes.
My God, man.
Great.
All right, we're getting to the serious stuff here. The best singles match of the year, man. What do you got? Okay,
There's
good choice.
I really, really like, but Kenny Bryan Danielson, I think, was the match of the year in the singles. I loved Cobb and Shingo at Wrestle Kingdom, or New Beginning, or was it Cobb and Shingo at Wrestle Kingdom was great too for the Never Openweight. That would probably be my second. Walter Dragunov, hard to ignore that. The Okada Ospreay. We've seen a lot of Shingo in these matches on our list, by the way. So that really does justify your wrestler of the year.
I guess it does. Yeah, I mean, he still had great matches.
And Seth Rollins and Edge had a great Hell in the Cell match, probably the best Hell in the Cell match in years.
Was that at Crown Jewel?
Remember. No, I don't remember exactly what it was. Maybe. I don't know.
I think it
I
was
just
at
remember
Crown
they had a
Jewel,
great
man.
Hell in the Cell match. Oh no, maybe it was at Hell in the Cell, actually.
The obvious, yeah. Well, they had a great
Um,
match at Crown Jewel as well.
right, right, they did. They have good chemistry. Um, Paige and Dan O'Brien was great. Naito Ibushi. Um, but Kenny and Brian Danielson. Not only the fact that they opened the show, did a half-hour Broadway, and a draw, but also just like the excitement when we found out we were getting that match. I don't think we were excited about any match this year more than that one.
As far as
Dream match
I
quality,
think I
and
agree. I was
something
go
we
ahead.
didn't think we would get so soon. And I mean, just the whole story behind it was just, oh my God, we're getting this. Oh my God, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think any other match delivered that type of hype.
It was a true dream match, and in fact, almost like all of Danielson's matches have been that way for the most part. You look at even him against why am I forgetting his name? Kaze Ninare.
Suzuki. See, that's another match we didn't mention with him. Amazing.
Great, great fucking match. But yeah, versus Kenny, that was just like so awesome. And you know what's crazy about it is because of the draw, they left it on the table too.
Right, exactly. And same thing with Paige. Yeah, a lot of seed planting that was done in that match. And I have no problem with the draw. Like, people are saying, oh, we're going to finish.
No,
Like,
oh no, that was
just,
like the best choice, dude.
yeah, both of them I think were great having draws. I have no problem with the draw.
I thought that match was incredible as well. My match of the year, I really stewed over this, and I thought to myself, what match like got me so absorbed? And you know what? When I get really into a wrestling match, dude, I'll start like my foot will go up and down. Almost like I get really nervous. I'll start talking to
Right.
this screen,
Shaking
like,
your leg.
okay, okay, yeah, I'll shake my leg and stuff. And I thought about all year and all these great matches I've seen, and you know, dude, the match that really got me really revved up, which I would call the match of the year, and I'm sure I don't think this will be many people's top pick, but it was Shingo Tanahashi for the Never Openweight title at New Beginning. That match, man, I don't know what it was. There was something magical about it. It was just, I was so excited watching that match. It just, I don't know, man. It really moved me. I thought it was a real work of art, and I didn't even notice about the clap crowd or anything like that. I was just so hyped up for it when it happened. So, do you remember that one in particular for the
Yeah, I
Never
do.
Openweight title?
No, it was amazing. And Tanahashi is just, I mean, he might be the greatest, like, just, I don't know how to explain it, but he might be the greatest babyface in ring wrestler that I've ever seen. And his style is a perfect contrast to what Shingo does as well too. So I mean, I think they're a very underrated combination, and they complement each other and have really good chemistry. And maybe we haven't seen enough of theirs, but yeah, that was a great match for sure.
And yeah, and I agree with you. Tanahashi, he embodies that whole Japanese idea of fighting spirit, man. I mean, he
Oh my
just
god, yeah.
when he yells and puts his fists up in the air, and it's always perfectly timed. I mean, the psychology is incredible with this guy. It's so timed that when he does that yell, it's like you want to yell with him. You know what I mean? You're just like, yes, dude, let's go. Just incredible psychology, just knowing how to work a crowd, knowing your timing. Just two true veterans, true greatest of all times going at it. So, yeah. Now the next category is our last category, and I'm pretty sure we agree on this. And I don't even have a huge list here, and I was gonna cage match stuff, but maybe I still should. We need to find some honorable mentions, and I think I found some. but we have the best tag team match of the year. And there's a reason I saved this for last, is because I think that the best tag team match of the year was also the best match of the year, right?
Could not agree with you more. And I think at this point, everyone probably knows what we're referring to as we got to this spot. But I mean, it's the cage match between the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks.
And I actually turned this on again before we got on the air, Justin, to check some of it out again, to see, like, was it just in my memory or was it real? And no, it was real, man. Talk a little about how you felt about this match watching it.
I mean, it's just probably the two best tag teams in the world as well. I know, a lot of people kind of, aren't as fond of the Young Bucks as they used to be. Maybe the shine has come off this being one of the most unique, dynamic tag teams. But when you put them in the ring and give them a moment like this, they still deliver on the highest possible level. And there might not be a more athletic, impressive tag team in pro wrestling than the Lucha Brothers. I guess we probably should have had a tag team of the year category, but I probably would have given it to the Lucha Brothers. I just think they're just a dynamic tag team that would fit in any era in the last 40, 30 years. I mean, they're incredible. And that match had everything. Unique spots I've never seen in a tag match before. You had the imagery of Pentagon bleeding through his mask. How cool was that? You had the Young Bucks take those $3,000 Jordans and Travis Scott Jordans or whatever and put thumbtacks in them. And I mean, it had it all. It was just
the match. Good. The match, a really good match, man, is great from the even before it starts, and they had everything. The entrances specifically,
yes,
the Lucha Brothers entrance. For not being, okay, yes, it wasn't like the WWE where they have, the giant fucking airplane flying by and, but, look, that, with what they had, which was Ruckus out there rapping and another rapper, and the Lucha Brothers coming out in these huge Mexican headdress, it was an incredible entrance to the point where Shivani said right after it, he said that was one of the most spectacular entrances I've ever witnessed. And the part that really got me is when Justin Roberts mentioned, or when Justin Roberts announced Phoenix, he climbed up the cage and got to the top of the cage. And that is an iconic visual for me, When I saw it live, I was just getting chills watching it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And obviously the match met every level of that pageantry that we saw. And that just set up with the importance and the relevance of the match, having a grand entrance like that, and made everything seem that much more important and relevant. And that definitely match of the year, and of course tag team match of the year.
I have to add too is that AEW has gotten so good with tag teams. They have such a great tag team division. It's not like two singles matches going on, and especially in the tag match, because there's actually no tagging going on, right? I mean, this was two guys versus two guys, and the way they did it, where they're all slapping each other, one guy slaps another, who slaps the next guy, who just stuff. Those spots, look, the match was all spots. I'll say that straight up, and that's okay because the spots that they had were so meaningful. I mean, especially they had little stories going on in the match. You had who could be more crazy, Phoenix or Nick Jackson, right? You had this little story going on in the match. And it was just an incredible thing. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to say this is the match of the year. So, nothing crazy there, but how could you not say it? I mean, it was great, man.
Unless you didn't see it or something. But,
even then,
this was...
Maybe you felt how good it was just from how good it was, It just gave you this vibe. So, I wish I had a list of best tag team matches of the year. The thing is, though, I can't just search tag matches on Cage Match. You know what I mean? At least I don't know how. So we're probably missing a bunch of stuff. New Japan had some good tag matches. Well, actually, I don't know. Like with all the Dick Togo bullshit, I don't even know if I could compare
some of the
that.
Tekkers stuff was really good.
Yeah.
The Tekkers had a great, or put together a great run this year, for sure. And some Naito and Sonata stuff, was great too. I unfortunately don't know much of the WWE stuff that's been happening. I know you've had the RK Bro run, you've had the New Day doing their thing, and the Usos.
AJ and Omos.
AJ and Omos doing a little, so there's been some good work elsewhere, but I mean, head and shoulders above. It's one of those things where, like, I don't think I'm gonna find a better deal than what we got here, so there's no need to look.
I agree, man. So there you have it. Moving on to next category, best time to end a podcast.
I'm gonna go with right now.
as it just like immediately goes to the music. So
it's Christmas Eve, so I think I actually gotta wrap some presents right now.
You are really waiting late, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay.
I was at Target today, dude, so, it's not, I was buying gifts today. I think, actually, like, this is going to sound funny, but, like, historically, the couple days before Christmas are actually the biggest shopping days of the year. It's not Black Friday, which...
I heard it's the week before Christmas. The Saturday before Christmas, I hear, is the biggest shopping day.
Well, and it moves from year to year, from day to day per year, but...
I mean, I was at Target yesterday, and... going around to a few different places, and it actually wasn't that bad. I think a lot less people are shopping in store these days. They're buying online and maybe going.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Where back in the day, remember, it was always the day after Christmas was like the other big day because everyone was returning shit.
Right, now people are just putting them in a box
and sending them back. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And
so I we'll see. Anyways. Merry Christmas to people that celebrate Christmas or whatever.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, or just have a great next 2 weeks. And, I always consider, if I don't celebrate a holiday, if someone tells me Merry Christmas, I can still have a really good day on Christmas. So thank you for telling me Happy Halloween or whatever. I can still have a happy day on Halloween even if I don't celebrate it, right? So I always consider people are just telling you to have a good day.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas to you as well. I actually got some Amazon money tonight and bought a new terabyte hard drive, so that's good for the show because that means my computer, because I'm going to transfer my whole hard drive to the new SDD, you know what I mean? So my computer will last longer, so... really good stuff, and I'll be able to transfer files a lot quicker as well. So good stuff.
Exciting.
Good stuff for the show here. So thanks everyone for listening. What did you guys think about 2021? If you want, you can always hit us up, let us know. And if you totally think we missed the mark, or if you think you totally agree with us, we'd love to hear about it. It was a good year of wrestling, man.
All right, and let's hope the next year is just as good, if not better, right?
If we always hope for that, man. Every year just gets better and better, we hope. So, and it's going to be an exciting year. Maybe we'll do a little outlook on the next year on the next few episodes if we have time. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely squeeze one in the next few days. Wrestle Kingdom and whatever else preview.
Yeah. So I'm going to go and watch some old matches, and you got to wrap some presents. So... thank you for listening, guys, and we will talk to y'all later.